compliance in construction sites, the Lagos State perspective. Before I start, I'd like to give a brief introduction about the mandate of the Lagos State Safety Commission. The Lagos State Safety Commission was established in the year 2011 and has the mandate of being the policy formulating, advisory, and regulatory body for all matters relating to the safety of lives and properties. The Commission is also responsible for the coordination of government ministries, departments, and parastatals, and as part of our core functions, conduct investigations and make recommendations accordingly on policies relating to safety in the state. What is our mandate? Now, according to Section 9A of the Lagos State Safety Commission's law, part of our mandate includes policy formulation, advisory, and regulatory body for all government MDAs and the safety of lives and properties at all levels and all safety-related issues. In the same law, Section 10E of the law empowers the Commission to promote safety culture through sustained public and institutional enlightenment strategies and programs. And we carry out this through series of sensitization and advocacy initiatives. So I'm going to start with sensitization. What do we mean by sensitization? The Lagos State Safety Commission, over the course of the years, has made it its responsibility to bring safety awareness to artisans, builders, contractors, and ensuring that every single individual understands the part that they play in warranting the safety of lives and properties at work. As Walter Scott once said, the future of the safety movement is not so much dependent on the invention of safety devices as on the importance of method of educating people on the ideal of caution and safety. Listeners, you agree with me that for construction sites, being one of the most dangerous sectors, it is important that we tread the line of caution and safety. The key in this quote is improvement of the methods of educating people. The Lagos State Safety Commission, on its part, strives to continually seek and invent methods to preach safety and ingrain it in the consciousness of all workers, especially those in the construction sector. Then I'll move to mindset change. And this is one of the biggest challenges that we face as a commission. Let's be honest. Regardless of soundness of safety policies an organization will possess or the level of safety being practiced, it is oftentimes determined by the attitude of workers. Safety is a mindset. And you agree with me, policies are mere written words that are useless if not properly followed and enforced. The management of any organization must first set the tone of safety by actions such as effective safety programs that boost safety awareness. This way, the workers follow based solely on examples. And this is one of the things that as a commission, we are trying to ensure, which is change the mindset of the people towards safety. Routine inspection. Routine inspections is an extremely effective method for detecting potential health and safety violations across construction sites. The inspection can be seen intimidating, especially when the government-appointed consultants or officials come to sites. Their responsibility is to look through every nook and cranny and address all identified safety issues. However, organizations are expected to do a self-assessment using a checklist so as to evaluate their safety compliance level. This is one of the functions of the commission, and part of what we do is ensure that our list of consultants and officials go around various construction sites with pre-established checklists ensuring compliance of certain safety measures to ensure reduction in accidents across construction sites in Lagos. Self-assessment. The purpose of self-assessment is to promote and improve safety performance through the direct involvement of personnel in critical examination and improvement of their own work activities. Our opinion is that it is important. Self-assessment is an important mechanism to ensure that management is effective in monitoring operational safety performance, and it takes its time to ensure corrective actions are put in place to improve the performance in their respective organizations. Some of the advantages of self-assessment include recognize and control hazards in your workplace, reduce accidents in the workplace, and it reduces costs by being proactive instead of being reactive. We'll also be talking about management commitments, and this is another area that we see that a lot of construction sites and contractors are lacking behind, especially in Lagos. Management commitment cannot be overemphasized. It is a specific and critical component to ensure safety of workers, and that there's awareness in itself. It has a lot of benefits. Management to safety predicts workers' job-related safety behaviors and incidents or injuries. Employees whose managers are committed to safety have expectation that such safe behavior is valued and will be supported by their managers. And this would ensure that unsafe behaviors are discouraged and there will be penalty for it. Once there's a management commitment, we would understand, or our workers will understand, that for every unsafe practice being done or being carried out on a site, there's a penalty for it. This will piggyback to the earlier point which I mentioned, which is a mindset change. Then people understand that it is not just business as usual. The points above prove to show that management commitment to safety could cause a significant mindset change. Because once the CEO or the contractor, as the case may be, across the construction sites in Lagos, have the safety of their workers at heart and they commit to it, it makes it easier to cascade this information down and ensure that all the workers on site are safety compliant. Moral values. Creating a morally safe environment means that we must take a self-evaluative look at our presumptions, our trainings, our rationalizations, and our fixed belief. All this will ascertain how a worker will work despite trainings given to him. This calls for a big question. How then do we evaluate a worker's moral value? Using the Likert scale, for example, is a very good way of examining a worker's moral standing. This can also be conducted as part of employees' appraisal to check if your employees have been compromised in any way. A worker's moral value will greatly impact the work he does, how he or she does it, or how they also perceive the risks at work. And this is important because a lot of artisans have various moral values. And up until we analyze where these moral values lie and our organization's commitment to safety, there will always be a lacuna between establishing a proper safety protocol on our sites and enforcing it across the various sites. A positive safety culture. A safety culture is an organizational culture that places a high level of importance on safety beliefs, values, and attitude. A positive safety culture can result in improved workplace health and safety and organizational performance. And the best way to enshrine a positive safety culture is, one, ask questions. Do workers know all the safety procedures and believe that they are important and necessary? Are workers, managers, and senior leaders willing to invest the needed time, money, or energy into achieving company safety objectives? Can workers, managers, and senior leaders freely communicate their concerns without fear? Do leaders have the time to educate, train, motivate, clarify, and remind workers on the company's safety goals? Are your safety and productivity goals mutually beneficial? All these questions are important to ask for us to start to establish a positive safety culture. Now, use of PPE. The use of PPE, as we all agree, is the last control measure and is a very crucial aspect in construction sites. PPE protects users against certain hazards, and this must never be overlooked. At major construction sites in the state, there has been an oversight on the use of PPEs, majorly because there are many independent construction workers and they may be difficult to supervise. As part of our mandate, the Safety Commission aims to ensure routine inspection is done thoroughly to cover all areas of the state, and use of PPE is greatly promoted. Now, please give me a few minutes to speak outside of my presentation and speak to the perspective of the state in enforcing health and safety among construction sites. I'll piggyback on some of the points that I've touched on. However, I will give some real life scenarios of locations that we've been to, the state of this construction site, and what the Commission is doing to improve such. One will be the use of PPEs. Secondly, will be a mindset change. And three, which is most important, is advocacy. Now, over the last couple of months in which we've been at the Safety Commission, we've realized that there's been a total disregard for the use of PPEs. You'll be surprised that when you get to a lot of construction sites, no hard hats, no safety boots, no reflective jackets. Oftentimes that we've had to interface with some of these construction workers, they cite all sorts of examples as to why they don't wear some of these PPEs. Sometimes they have it, but they don't wear it. Even to their reflective jackets, to their safety helmets, and to their safety boots. The Commission has also invested a lot in doing advocacy and sensitization, calling contractors and informing them of the use of PPEs, telling them why there's a need for a radical mindset change, letting them understand the cost saving that they would have if they ensure the use of proper health and safety measures across their sites. However, we cannot do it alone. So we would also use this opportunity to say that we are open to collaborations on advocacy, on sensitization, in reducing accidents, incidents, and injuries across all construction sites in Lagos. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, I'll be willing to take it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Seun Awojobi, for very brilliant presentation. I mean, giving us an insight into what the Commission is doing in Lagos State. I hear you, and I hear you so loud, where you have a lot of people giving reasons why they do not wear PPEs. But obviously, the use of PPE, that's why it's called PPEs, for their own personal protection. You know, we see that everywhere. I just hope in going forward, the great work you guys have done, compliance and monitoring, I mean, and enforcement will be heightened beyond where it is right now. Thank you so much. That was very insightful. We appreciate you. So if you have questions, just leave the questions at the for us at the Q&A session. We'll take them, and the speakers will answer them at the right time. So we're moving on to the next presentation. As a matter of fact, I heard about this presentation. I got an insight about this presentation, and I was very excited. I mean, we went to hear this from Africa. You know, we hear a lot of things that happens here. It looks like, oh my God, how come? But this is mind-blowing because I got an insight into this presentation. Hold your breath. Don't just hold your breath. A lot's going to happen around this presentation. A very strong colleague of mine and very strong advocate of health and safety in East Africa, Jackie Luanga, will be having the next presentation. I won't say much about you, so I'll just leave you to go on, let the audience hear you tell your story. Welcome to the stage. Thank you. You can share your slides.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, greetings of the hour, everyone. I'm really humbled to be in the lineup with all the distinguished speakers for the 2020 International Vision Zero Conference. I'm Jackie Luanga, and I'm the HSC manager for the East African Crude Oil Pipeline on the Ugandan side of the pipeline. So I'd like to share about some of the cultural challenges that we face in the construction, sector. And first and foremost, before you even think of the risks that come with the construction itself, I'd like us to go a step back and look at the risks we face at the time of clearing the site, ready for construction. My question to you is, what is on the site? What will you find on the land where you'd like to develop? So you might find some ritual places or shrines. You might find graves. What is the legal framework when it comes to relocating these items? What are the cultural norms? What methodology do we use in the relocation? How do we manage the risks which are introduced by these processes? And what general considerations should you take into account? So this is you with your big project about to start, and this is the site you've been allocated, or this is where the land is, and you find a shrine. It might be for a family, it might be for a clan, it might be for a community. So moving it is not as simple as it may seem. It might look like you're out in the wilderness in a bush and you find a tree, but it's a tree of blessings where people go to conceive twins, to get married, to get finances, to get all sorts of blessings. Again, this could be belonging to a community, it could be belonging to a tribe, to a family, to a certain region. You don't just cut it and start your construction. There are guidelines that you must follow, which introduce risks into our projects. You might find graves on the land where you'd like to develop. They might be concrete or earth graves. Moving them also is not as simple as it may seem, but we'll come to that and the risks that are introduced even prior to your start of the construction project. So what is the legal framework when it comes to the relocation of graves or shrines? Unfortunately, there is no national legislation, relating to the relocation of those items, which leaves it, open to interpretation any way you see fit. So we have the OSH Act, which requires that your risk assessments are suitable and sufficient. So even with these kind of activities, you've got to make sure that you identify all the risks and control measures are in place. When you look at the Public Health Act, it only tells us the depth of the graves, for an infant, 1.5 feet, for somebody else, 6 feet, for a cultural leader, 15 feet. So this information will help us when we go down to start excavating and getting out the human remains for relocation. At least we'll know how deep we need to go. Some other guidelines that we use are the IFC performance standards. For example, performance standard number 5 is for resettlement. It requires that you mitigate any adverse social and economic impacts. It also requires you to provide compensation, but also to consult those who are concerned. So you've got to take their requirements, their cultural norms into consideration, among others. We also look at the IFC Performance Standard 8, which is for cultural heritage. Now, this one doesn't only look at properties and sites of archaeological, historical, cultural, artistic, or religious importance, but it also looks at intangible forms of culture which embody traditional lifestyles. So in everything that you do, you've also got to take these into consideration. Of course, we need permits from the local council, from the police, from the family, and all these take time. You know, the permits may delay your project. So before you even plan your budgets and your timelines, please, I request that you first check the land. What is on that land? Because everything that you're budgeting, the special PPE, you have to take all that into consideration. So what are the cultural norms? When it comes to moving shrines, it's a bit easier. I'm not saying it's not complicated, but you know what they need is maybe to get a white goat, sacrifice it, and the spirits will tell them where they want to move. So you've got to make sure that it's all done safely and the spirits are not entering everybody else who's not part of that. And you know, the spirits are relocated elsewhere, and that's where the new shrine will be built. So at least in such an activity, I think where you'll need to stop is the compensation now, because there are no laws. Again, it varies, you know, from one tribe to another, from one clan to another, from one community to another. It's quite complicated. But for the graves, moving them, first of all, it has to be done at night. So all the risks that you can think of that come with working at night, you know, driving at night, poor lighting, visibility, the fatigue, the stress, people, you know, the workers will be sleepy, even the guys around the site will be sleepy, those supervising them, lack of concentration, among others. So as you can see, risk of injury at night is always heightened. But in addition to this, of course, there are the animal sacrifices, but they've got to drink some local brew. So not only are you dealing with risks of night working, but you're also dealing with people who are drunk. And in addition to that, for them to exhume the bodies, they've got to smoke weed. So there are special people usually who do these activities. So it won't be your like funeral services doing it. There's special people who actually do it. And you've got to facilitate them and give them all these items, regardless of your company processes and procedures. So you're working at night, they're drinking alcohol and smoking weed, and you've got to manage all the risks that come with those activities. Now, when you look at the methodology, it's always, like for the graves, it's always manual excavation. So if it is an earth grave, what you do is you cut right in the middle and then start digging towards the feet. Now, with all the risks that you can think of, you know, that may come with that activity, moreover at night in the middle of nowhere, that is the procedure. So manual excavations, how do you stop, you know, the sides from collapsing? How do you stop people from falling inside? Everything else that comes with excavation, you know, the equipment that you use, the tools, the debris, and all this is happening at night. You've got to take that into consideration. If it is a concrete grave, normally what they do, again, it depends from one culture to another, but what they normally do is break off where the feet are, you know, open that side and then pull out the body. So all the risks that again come with that activity, you know, what did these people die of? Was it Ebola? Was it coronavirus? What illnesses might the workers, how can you protect them? What special PPE do you need? So all that has to be taken into consideration. So the methodology alone, the manual excavation, you know, the tools that you're using, introduce new risks into your project even before you've started construction. You've got to minimize damage to the human remains. So it's a very, very delicate process. That's why we don't use any equipment. You've got to ensure that you respect, you know, dignity and respect is maintained. And you've got to assemble all the remains into the new coffin. Now, again, it's a very delicate process. You may not be able even to complete one grave in one night. And you're not even allowed to leave in any remains in the grave where you're exhuming the remains. Sorry, guys. So when it comes to risk management, you've got to take into consideration all, you know, everything right from when you visit the site, because first of all, you don't know what you'll find on the site. So you've got to take that into consideration. Take into consideration, you know, all the risks that come with working at night, you know, driving at night, Personnel welfare, you don't only have personnel, you've got the pathologists there, you've got the government officials there, you've got members of the family, you've got your own security personnel, HSC personnel, monitoring and evaluation. So all the people that must be on site at night, if it's raining, how do you keep them safe? Security, places of convenience, some tea or coffee. It is really a challenge, bearing in mind that these activities happen at night. And most of the times it's in the middle of nowhere because we don't bury in the city centers. Manual excavation, all the risks that come with that have to be covered in your risk assessment. The risks of, removing the remains from the grave have to be taken into consideration. Now, backfilling, because you can't leave it open, animals, children, everybody will fall in there. Again, you'll have other problems on your case. So, you've got to backfill, the graves and restore the site. You've got to disinfect the contaminated areas. Now, what do you use? What chemicals will you use? How will you do it? To ensure that it's not brought back into the food chain. How do you transport, the remains to the new burial site, bearing in mind that the guys you're going with are drunk, they're smoking weed, it's at night? Take all those risks into consideration. The risks that come with construction of a new grave and the reburial of the human remains. So all these you've got to take into consideration. So your risk assessment before you go into the construction risk assessment should consider you relocating all these items that you may find on your site. So what are some of the general considerations that you should have in mind? Take into consideration logistics, what equipment, what vehicles, what PPE do you need for these activities? Many times you're not able even to complete one grave in one night. So how will you store, the tools at the end of the working day? How will you disinfect the tools prior to storage? What chemicals will you use? Looking at the whole activities, your emergency plan, taking into consideration everything else that is happening, has to be really thorough, and you've got to practice it to make sure that should it happen, it will actually work for you. These activities normally attract loads of members from the public. How do you screen them, from coming to your site and viewing, what's going on? Waste management is another very sensitive area when it comes to these activities. Sometimes they take, the soil closest to the body and it's what they put in first and then put the clean soil on top. But you have to check with the National Environment Management Authority to see if they will agree or if they are in agreement with all this that you're doing. So much as you may have top management commitment and support, identifying hazards, in such scenarios, because it varies from one tribe to another, from one country to another, and also controlling the risks really, really varies. Defining subsystems of work for such programs also becomes tricky. The equipment, the tools that you'll use, developing competencies for the workers who are going to supervise these activities that probably they've never taken, they've never been involved in, becomes a challenge also. But last but not least, how do you motivate the workers who are going to be involved in these activities? So, for me, mine today was to make sure that when you're planning your activities, your construction activities, that before you even start on your risk assessments for the construction itself, you start on your risk assessment for site clearance, because what you find on site will also determine, your budgets, how long the project will take, because some of these permits and some of these activities do take a lot of time, but they introduce risks which are very unique and sometimes very challenging into our projects. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jackie. If you're here and you were saying you are a health and safety manager in construction company and you have not excavated mortar remains, you have not started your job. So you can see the kind of job she's doing, very insightful. And while you were making those presentations, I would just hear looking at the whole screen, said, but this is even a woman doing this job, you know. Honestly, we salute your courage, and we appreciate you for the great job you are doing along this line. I saw new dimensions of risk. You know how you talk about safety, you write guidelines, but you can see how belief and culture how it changes the landscape of health and safety. And that was quite insightful. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you. So if you have questions, please just send them into the Q&A box. We'll take that at the right time. So we have the next presenter is Engineer Adeoje. She is the director at FOSI, and she is here to give us Engineer Olubunmi Adekoje. She's the director of FOSI Nigeria, that the body that's in charge of regulation of construction work across the country. So, Madam, you are welcome. You can now please share your slide. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I want to confirm if you can hear me clearly.
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. So good afternoon, everybody. It's really a privilege being here. I'll quickly share my screen and quickly. Okay. Thank you very much. I have been listening with rapt attention to the various presentations today, and I want to, once again, congratulate the organizers. It's been a really fruitful time with all of you here today. I'll just do a quick introduction. This is my presentation outline. I'll do a quick introduction to FOSI.
Sorry, Madam, 1 minute. Can you put it on slideshow for us so we can have...
it's on slideshow. Can you see it?
Not on slide. Just click on slideshow so that it can come up as a slide per page.
I've actually put it on slideshow at my end.
Okay, you can go ahead. Maybe it's just some technical issue. Go ahead, Madam.
Okay. So my presentation outline, I'll do an introduction to FOSI. I'll talk very briefly on health and safety challenges in construction industry in Nigeria, and I'll make a few recommendations. As I said, as Mr. Idehe introduced, we are Federation of Construction Industry. We are the umbrella body for construction companies in Nigeria. We were founded about 66 years ago now with over 100 member companies. And we do representation of our members. We are into standards, and we ensure sustained excellence in the construction industry in Nigeria. And we'll talk about ethics and stability. It is our members that are well known for that in Nigeria. We also happen to be a trade union. We actually operate as a trade union, and we are the employers organization for construction in Nigeria. So we do collective bargaining with junior and senior unions in construction industry in Nigeria. And our NGIC is used for all forms of construction work in Nigeria. We're into advocacy, we're into publications, and very, very recently, we added another baby to our stable, that is the FOSI Skills Academy. FOSI Skills Academy will be conducting dual vocational skills training on construction skills. We started training our trainers, and very early next year, we'll start training artisans. So I'll go into health and safety challenges in the construction industry, the Nigerian perspective. And I want to acknowledge the presentation by Mr. Alexander Akweye from Ghana. In fact, as he presented, you could have thought he was presenting for Nigeria. It seems our issues are very, very similar. What he presented mirrors most of the challenges we actually have in Nigeria. I'd also like to appreciate the efforts of Lagos State Safety Commission. Just spoke about two speakers before me, and they are known as role models in the implementation of health and safety in construction in Lagos State. Unfortunately, on the larger scale for the whole of Nigeria, we have issues. So we'll look at health and safety challenges, we look at governance, we look at the issues with employers, issues with employees, and then a few other issues. And we'll look at the challenges one by one. So what's the major issue with governance? From a governance point of view, we do not have a specific health and safety law for construction. And currently, our health and safety laws in construction are embedded in the Factory Act, which is currently under review. But it's heartwarming to inform you that we do have a draft bill being prepared for construction health and safety. This draft bill is being prepared by stakeholders in the construction industry in Nigeria. We are all sitting together under the Construction Industry Development Initiative to draft a proper health and safety bill that would actually take care of construction health and safety. We also know that when we look at the issues of governance, we have a great shortage of professional monitoring officers. And we talk about training and retraining. The relevant ministries do not have, they have competence issues. So training and retraining of their workers is an issue. So when you have monitoring officers, sometimes they don't even have them. Sometimes the ones that are available are not well trained. Sometimes some of them need retraining, and skills and expertise are in very short supply. We also have the issue of funding. There's the issue of funding for these officers who are supposed to carry out oversight duties. When they are not funded, they cannot go to the various sites and do their work. And we know as a nation, there's a challenge of collapsed buildings. It's an embarrassment to us. And it's a great embarrassment, but sometimes we wonder if our government lacks the political willpower to actually take care of this. So I'll just keep it brief. Maybe, what is it? Okay. I'm told you cannot see my slides. Please let me try and share it again. I'll try and share my slides again.
We can see your slide. Can you go ahead, madam?
Okay, somebody said he couldn't see my slide. I hope I'm on the same page with you now.
Yes, I can see.
Very well.
Please continue.
Thank you. So another aspect we'd like to look at is the issue of employers. I hope you can still see my slide. We find that only top grade companies will appreciate the concept of health and safety and would actually build health and safety into their construction process. Many other companies, the smaller companies, do not appreciate the concept of health and safety. And as a result, it is considered as an additional cost to the original high cost of doing business. As you are aware, in most parts of Africa, doing business is a big challenge. And because of the challenge, many companies see it as an additional cost. Many companies do not understand the implication. Okay, I don't know if it's been shared. Yes, if you could move on to employers, please, if you are sharing from your end. Number 2, very good. I'm at the right place. Good. So many companies consider health and safety as an additional cost to their already high cost of doing business. And because they do so, they do not build health and safety into their construction process. They think that if they have to look at PPEs or taking care of the construction site to make it safe, that the costs are too high for them to bear. I'll just give you, something that food for thought. Recently, our trainers here, because we do have trainers who are preparing for our Forces Skills Academy, and we found that some of the trainers were asked to take pictures of construction sites in Nigeria, and they were asked to send these pictures to our foreign consultants who are working with us on preparing the Forces Skills Academy curriculum. And we found that our standard construction sites, which are owned by our members, the safety standards there were so very high compared to the safety standards in other sites, especially those owned by private, what will I call it? Private consultants or private construction sites. The difference was so high that we could not use images from these other construction sites. So we find that many employers, especially those that are not top grade companies, would run away from implementing health and safety. The provision of a safe workplace and safeguarding of employees' welfare is also supposed to be part of the duty of the employer. But unfortunately, many employers in Nigeria see this as an additional burden. Finally, employers experience shortage of professional labor. We have many employers cannot afford to employ certified HSC managers. And where you can even afford it, you might not get properly certified HSC professionals to take care of your work. We find that the lack of judicial references to ensure human rights compliance is significantly embedded in the national laws. Is another great problem for us. So also we go on to employees. What are the issues with our employees? One of the biggest issues we have with our employees is low educational level. As you are aware, in the construction industry, a large number of our workforce are mainly very poorly educated. So because of the level of education, many of them lack full understanding of the implication of working in hazardous conditions. And many of them, because of their level of education, they are unable to effectively muster force to demand and obtain safer working conditions. Another issue is the issue of unemployment. An individual that has been searching for employment for a long time finally gets employment. He feels they are doing him a favor to employ him. And because of the high rate of unemployment, when he gets work, he's ready to work no matter how dehumanizing the conditions of work might be and how unsafe the conditions might be. He's unable to push for better work conditions because he sees it as a favor being done him to get work. And many of our construction sites are ununionized. So the union is not there to actually push for the right thing to be done for the employees. You know that also that because of the high level of unemployment, there's lack of job security. Many of these workers, casuals, contract staff, or even daily labor. Another issue we have with our employees is our cultural dimension. You know, in Africa, religion plays a very great aspect in our life. Our culture and our traditions play a huge role in how we view accidents. Some people are so influenced by their religion that they believe that if God does not allow an accident to happen, it cannot happen. So therefore, they would not take safety guidelines as seriously as they should. So we're on to number 4, which is other challenges. One of the other challenges we have identified is lack of adequate information and statistics. Because we do not have adequate information and statistics, health and safety in construction is made to look like a Western problem. Without available statistics, when we do have statistics, it is usually unreliable. It might be based on a particular sector or part of the country. Most of the times, employees don't even have adequate relevant information on the effect of the hazardous conditions on their health. So they do not even know how to agitate for the right thing. They don't even know what challenges they are going to face at the place of work. And most especially, we also have the use of unsafe construction materials. I'm aware there's going to be the technical section 4 will deal fully with unsafe construction materials. So I'll leave that for that section. Our recommendations, very quickly to our recommendations. We believe that there is need for more and greater advocacy with government. Without advocacy with government, many of these problems that we are seeing with the issue of governance will remain there. Yes, we are aware there are little areas of great work being done, like in Lagos State, but what happens to the rest of Nigeria? There's a lot of advocacy we need to do as a health and safety organization with our country. And there's need to create awareness amongst employers to let them realize that it is very much more expensive to work in an unsafe environment compared to a relatively safer environment. We need to educate our workers, and we must sponsor surveys to generate data. a lack of data remains one of our greatest problems in Nigeria. I thank you very much for listening. I'm sure the questions we posted on the WhatsApp group or on the question and answer group as recommended. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam. That was very insightful, and we enjoyed every moment we spent with you, and we hear you loud and clear. We heard the issue of unemployment that makes workers to work in no matter the condition they've been given. I mean, that's very loud and clear in your presentation. We heard the issue of data. Data keep popping up in every presentation. But I think in all said and done, we need to start from where we are, no matter how little it is. The little information that we have in our workplaces on a daily basis, or we put them together, document them, that become data for us. Let's start documenting issues. Thank you so much. That was very, very insightful. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Your questions, please put them on the Q&A box. We will attend to all of them at the right time. So I have the next speaker, Mr. Selom, who will be speaking to us shortly. Mr. Selom, are you here? I think Selom is from Ghana also. Please share your slides. We want to hear from you. Is Mr. Selom here? Can you unmute your mic? Mr. Selom? Okay, if Mr. Selom is not here, what we may do with this time, or while we wait for him, let's look into the Q&A box and look at the questions that have been put in there by participants. I think the question I have here, this goes to Mr. Seun Awojobi from Lagos State Safety Commission. PPE is not comfortable. And what are you proactively doing to engage employees and perhaps contractors on maybe the enforcement of the use of PPEs? Is Seun still here with us? Is Seun still here with us? Because there are a number of questions for you in this place. Okay, if Seun is not here, I will want any of the speakers in this very session, this plenary, to take these questions. There's one other one. What are some of the approaches that the safety officer can use to convince management that does not appreciate the importance of safety in the workplace? I leave this open for every speaker that spoke at this session to please help address this. Jackie, you want to go?
Yeah, I can go on the PPE one.
Okay, please go ahead.
I think what can be done is, first and foremost, to get samples and have the guys who are going to use the PPE to try it on, the wearers to at least try it on and test, how it feels. Also making sure that it fits properly, that we get the right sizes, for the right people. If it means measuring, like for the overalls, then we actually measure, because some people, have different shapes. Training people also in how to wear it, how to put it off properly, take it off properly will help. But yeah, I think, is somebody talking?
12 o'clock. They're not talking 5 minutes break after 1.
I think it starts with bringing the samples. Yeah.
Selom, just hold on. We'll be calling you, but you need to hold on so that Jackie can finish her explanation. Jackie, please go ahead.
Okay. if we bring in, the samples and have the guys who are going to use it try it on, and they tell us how it fits, because they're the end users, and also making sure that the PPE that we get, first of all, is good quality, but that it also fits them properly. Where we need to measure, let's go ahead and measure, and explaining to them, why they need to put it on, what the company is doing to protect them, but what they also need to do to protect themselves, including the limitations, because it's not 100%. But also training them, on how to clean it, how to take it off properly, how to store it, how to check for defects. It's really engaging the end users. When you give them a long sleeve overall, they shouldn't roll it up. So we have to explain to them why we didn't give them the cheaper version of the short sleeved one, but give them the long sleeved one. So it's really changing the culture, but it starts with us, getting the right items and the right fit and the right quality for them, and also for them, trying on, giving them a chance to do the trials. I think that will go a long way to try and change the culture and have them wear it when they're supposed to wear it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. We really appreciate that. Selim, are you here now? Selim,
Yes.
we'll be calling up. Are you here now?
Yes, please, I'm here.
Please share your slide. We're looking out for you earlier and we couldn't find you. Please share your slides and make your presentation.
All right, thank you. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
All right. Thank you very much for giving me this platform. Sorry about the delay. I got caught up with the time difference because I was thinking I was going to start at 1 Ghana time, but I didn't know it was 12 Ghana time rather, because it's 1 o'clock in Nigeria. I'll be touching on the construction safety regulatory framework of Ghana. And my name is, first and foremost, I'm Selim Alfred Ametue. I'm an HSE compliance specialist in the oil and gas sector in Ghana. I've had a privilege of working on major construction projects. So it is absolute honor to be on this platform to touch on the construction safety regulatory framework. And before I dive into that, I would like to commend the earlier speaker, Alexander Kwe, for his submission, his experience in the construction industry. He did mention most of the low safety standard that we have as an industry. So I will just sort of look at the underlying factors as to why we have such a low safety standard in the construction sector. So without further ado, I'll just dive straight into it. This is the outline of my presentation. I'll be looking at the characteristic features of Ghana's construction industry to understand why we have poor safety standard. I also look at the current legal framework, how it has been organized, which in my opinion is designed to fail, given that we have a lot of incidents happening. Just a month ago, we had a building collapsing in Ghana, which resulted in the death of about 22 people. So clearly the legal system has failed us. I'll also look at the challenges that our current legal framework throws up onto us. So duty holders are not able to comply because there's what I call a legal uncertainty in the current framework. We also look at some of the influencers, those who are helping to drive change within the construction sector. We look at the benchmark that we are looking at moving forward and the way forward to getting there actually. So without wasting time, this is a snapshot of our construction industry. It can be categorized under 3 subsectors. We have the commercial and residential buildings. We have industrial infrastructure. We also have the transport infrastructure. It plays a very significant role in nation building. As a result, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, the construction sector has contributed to about 7.1% of the GDP. That was back in 2018. It also employs a significant, a reasonable proportion of the young population, according to the labor report that was published by the Ghana Statistical Service in 2015, which is the most recent data that we have. It employs about 4.4% of the working population. But what is interesting to note is that this percentage, we have about 97% who work in an informal sector. So the construction industry in Ghana is largely an informal economy. As a result, we have a lot of local artisans that are playing a role in the sector. and they are confronted with a lot of challenges, which includes lack of training. The workers within the sector often are trained through apprenticeship program. Beyond that point, there's no formal professional training that are given to them. According to studies by Diverse Empowerment in 2014, it identified a skill gap of about 60,000, and that was projected to increase to 250,000 in terms of skills. So clearly there's a challenge in the industry. This has resulted in a lot of labor-intensive methods, a lot of exposure to occupational risk within the industry, and we have an incident rate of about 86 per thousand workforce. This can be extrapolated to about 25,000 if you're looking at a workforce of about 300,000. So there is clearly a challenge. So there is clearly a challenge, and we can owe this challenge to the current legal framework. The organization of the legal framework has been designed to fail, and that is the reason why we have a lot of challenges in the industry. We have a lot of multiple ministries and government departments that are in charge of standards within the construction sector. We also have these ministries are working closely with multiple enforcement agencies and bodies. We also have very few national laws on occupational health and safety. And what is also interesting to note is that there's no single regulation on construction safety. The regulatory systems, the laws and regulations have been scattered under the custodian of various agencies. So there's a bit of legal confusion. People don't know where to clearly get updates on legislation that they need to comply with. As a result, the compliance standard in the industry is very, very low. So this is just an organization of the legal framework. We have various ministries that are playing a role in when it comes to the overarching responsibility. We have the Ministry of Labor and Employment working closely with the Labor Department, the National Labor Commission, and Factories Inspectorate Department. We also have the Ministry of Interior that is working closely with Ghana National Fire Service to ensure fire safety in most of our buildings. We also have the Ministry of Environment, Science, Technology and Innovation working closely with Environmental Protection Agency and the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority. We also have some ministries that are specifically for the construction sector. That's Ministry of Works and Housing, and then the Ministry of Roads and Highway. The Ministry of Works and Housing is strictly responsible for commercial and then residential buildings. So they are working closely with the municipal and the metropolitan and district assemblies. So that is our sort of a local governance structure. We have the ministries at the top and we have the district assemblies at the bottom, who are sort of the frontline enforcement agencies who are ensuring compliance with building standards and some level of health and safety responsibilities. With regards to road construction, we have the Ghana Highway Authority. We also have the district assemblies working through specific departments like the Department of Feeder Roads and then the urban roads. So at a snapshot, you realize that there are a lot of agencies that are involved when it comes to various health and safety concerns in the industry. This slide is just to give how it has been framed up. When it comes to fire safety, we have the Ghana National Fire Service. They have a specific regulation that has enacted it into force, and they are enforcing compliance with a specific regulation, which is fire precaution. We also have the environmental concerns being championed by environmental agency, which has been enacted by an act of parliament enforcing a specific LI. When it comes to development permits like building permits and any other permit that you need to construct a building, we have that being championed by the Land Use and Spatial Planning Authority. So it goes on like that. And these are some of the laws that we have as far as construction in Ghana is concerned. And what is interesting to note is that there's no specific regulation on construction safety, unlike other jurisdictions like the case of the UK, where they have a CDM regulation that is dedicated specifically for construction. We have local governance, land use and spatial planning acts, and these are all sort of decentralizing the role.
C'est genre, en fait, c'est des renforcements décentralisés dans la.
Few being championed by insurance authority, the EPA, the fire service, and then the factories. duty holders in the industry. Definitely, given the scattered framework, it becomes very difficult for them to comply. So we have a current case of dispersed regulatory text, that is, various laws are in the custody of scattered agencies, and as a result, there's lack of regulatory focus. If you want to construct in the construction sector, you would have to deal with various agencies, and it tends to bring about a lot of confusion. And what is also interesting to note is that our legal system is prescriptive. It hasn't gotten to the point where we are setting goals and expecting duty holders to implement the best practices, which will include a robust safety management system that will help them to achieve the goal that we want. There's too much focus on licenses. Given the fact that we have a lot of prescriptive requirements, most people involved in the industry would always take the path of least resistance. So they would rather focus on paying their way through to get licenses and permits rather than following critically what the requirements of the laws are. And there's lack of duty of care in legislations. Most of the laws are outmoded, especially the Factories, Offices and Shops Act is outmoded. It doesn't take into account the new risk in the occupational health and safety section of the industry. As a result, there's lack of regulatory control. We don't have, there are very few enforcement agencies that are at the forefront, like the district assemblies. They are woefully, constrained in terms of logistics and human resource. They lack the competence to go out to enforce standards, provide the necessary training to support those who are on the field doing the job, and of course, lack of clear regulatory focus. So given the poor safety standard that we have and the organization of the legal framework, that makes it very difficult for us to ensure compliance. We have certain external influences that are helping to bring about change. For example, the IFC performance standards that's being championed by the World Bank in collaboration with other financial institutions that sort of support or provide donor support to most of the foreign multinationals embarking on construction projects in Ghana. You realize that they are able to follow through with the EHS guideline of the IFC. And this is something that is quite common with foreign multinationals, especially in the oil and gas sector. On major onshore projects, you have the clients and ensuring the use of the EHS guideline. And this is helping to drive change within the industry in terms of supply chain control, because once they are giving out contracts to subcontractors, will integrate EHS requirements in the contract, and they're able to influence down the supply chain what all the players in the construction project have to do. We also have the role of the media in a somehow reactive approach, because they bring to the forefront what the incidents are, especially with the recent collapse of the building. It was the media that brought to the attention of everybody, and this is sort of sensitizing a lot of awareness and getting the pressure groups involved to come out with or to continue to push for a reform in the industry. So definitely we have a benchmark that we are looking at. The benchmark is the ILO Occupational Health and Safety Convention C155, and that clearly stipulates the requirement for a national system. And Ghana has been a member of the ILO for since 1957, and we have ratified this convention. Like many African countries, it is expected that we set up the national system for occupational health and safety. And that requirement is that we need to have a coherent national policy on occupational health and safety. And from the same analogy of a policy at the enterprise level, this will establish the government commitment to occupational health and safety. And the requirements of the ILO also stipulate that we must give effect to the policy with an adequate national system. And this is how a national system looks like. We need national laws and regulations that are specific to occupational health and safety. We need enforcement authorities and bodies that are dedicated. We need a mechanism for ensuring compliance, which includes a system of inspection. We need to ensure that health and safety is promoted at all levels. And that is where the National Tripartite Advisory Body comes in, which is the most representative body of employer, the government and employees, to embark on a social dialogue that would help to bring up a lot of health and safety concerns and come up with the right policy framework that will help to drive the agenda. There's also need for a lot of training and occupational health service. There's need for research into occupational health and safety. There has to be a mechanism for data collection, analysis of occupational health and safety injuries, and also an insurance system where people who sustain injuries on site could be compensated, as well as a support for the small and medium-sized enterprises. So this is how a national system ought to be. And also according to the ILO, it has identified the fact that most countries have a structural problem when it comes to a national system. So there's a strong drive towards a best practice, which is having a single basic regulatory framework. A single basic regulatory framework aims to make sure that the system is very, very simple, and there's that level of focus as to who is responsible for what. And that is something that has been replicated by most of the advanced world, like in the case of the US and then the UK. They have a dedicated ministry for occupational health and safety, like Department of Works and Pension in the case of the UK and Department of Labor in the case of the US. And they have a dedicated enforcement authority, like the OSHAs and then the HSC. And also we need to have a single act, and that single act will set the context for countries to enact specific legislations to address specific health and safety issues. And having a specific health and safety issue in the construction sector will mean that we have a dedicated regulation that addresses everything within the construction sector, like the CDM regulation. And then also the enforcement authority would help with approved code of practice as to how to comply with the regulation, and have guidelines that will support in terms of technical information, technical reports, in terms of the safe system of work for work in the construction sector, and must have a system of inspection and a way of ensuring penal actions in case people are flouted or deviated from the regulation. So that is what a single framework looks like. So for us in Ghana—
Sorry, Selam, you should be timing up now, okay? Thanks.
So for us in Ghana, we are looking at a single framework. We want to make sure that all the dispersed regulations are harmonized. We want to make sure that the regulations cover all health and safety risks. We want to also make sure that we follow the goal setting principle, where we set regulations and expect that they follow best practice. And we also want to make sure that resources are allocated to the various enforcement agencies. If it's one, which is very good for us, then we will also have a system of data collection and analyzing it to bring about improvements in the sector. So before I leave you with, I end this presentation, I would mention that I'll leave you with a quote from Todd Conklin, which states that safety is not the presence of, it's not the absence of accidents, but it's the presence of capacity. So we need capacity in our national systems, we need capacity in our management system, and we need capacity in our employees. So that's the end of my presentation. I'll stand by for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Selam. Thank you so much for a paper well put together. You agree with me that that was brilliant also. Thank you. That was really novel. So we have come stylishly to the end of this plenary. Sorry if you are hearing some noise here from my end. It's raining here, so I'm struggling to actually hear also. So I will hand over to Dr. Moyo Dingane, who will be taking over the technical session. But before then, let me see if there are questions left for these presenters inside this Q&A box. Just 1 minute. Okay, I'm not sure there are further questions. No, there are no further questions. So, Dr. Moyo, if you're here, I hand over to you to moderate the next technical session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ehi, on that great note as you concluded the first session in the afternoon. Good afternoon, good morning, everyone, depending on wherever you are. I wish to welcome you to the second last segment of our presentations, which is technical session number 3. And this afternoon, we're quite privileged to discuss on this very important topic, ways to improve occupational safety and health. You all agree with me that every system must strive and endeavor to improve its facets in all dimensions. And the field of occupational safety and health needs that inspirational drive that is driven towards continuous improvement through a collaborative approach and a scientific focus, which indeed focuses on total quality management. So we're quite privileged this afternoon to have international speakers who are going to take us through. We've got 4 speakers. The first session will be taken by Professor Karl Notel, who is president of the International Social Security Association in Construction from Germany. Is going to take us through the topic 4 protection measures. Then thereafter, Richard Whittaker will take us through the role of the designer, built for life. And our third last speaker in this technical session, number 3, will be Dmitry Platygin from Russia, from the All Russia Research Institute of Labor. He is going to speak to us about factors for implementing a safety culture in the construction industry of Russia. And to conclude our session 3 will be Emmanuel Estival Valoy, who is the founder of Amosetra from Mozambique, who is going to speak to us on ways to prevent occupational accidents in the construction industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very much privileged to have this set of well-renowned international speakers. So to kick off the session, I would like to give this opportunity to Professor Karl Notel to talk about the 4 protection measures. Thank you so much. Over to you, Karl.
Thank you very much. And I will try to share the screen now. Hopefully it will work. Yes. Okay, I hope you can see it. So thank you very much for giving the opportunity to talk about 4 protection measures in line with Vision Zero in construction. So first of all, I would like to say construction is beautiful. I'm a civil engineer, so this is my first slide always. Construction is beautiful. I love construction, but construction destroys as well, and construction can hurt, and it could be fatal as well. So we heard a lot of facts today from different countries and from all over the world. I only want to highlight 2 facts. One is every 14 seconds, someone dies to work conditions in this world. Every 14 seconds. And fatal injuries due to fall, approximately 20% of all fatal injuries in this world. This is a huge amount. And if we talk about financial loss, the economic loss worldwide from the GDP is 0.5%. That means 0.25 trillion US dollar only related to fatal injuries related to falls. So this is something you should keep in mind all the time. What are the general causes? We heard it this morning. If you look to accident causes in construction, these are the main accident causes, and slip, trip, and falls is number 1. Ladders are also related to falls. We heard it again this morning. And regarding ladders, for example, there is a company in Norway, it's North Europe. They are not a construction company with more than 20,000 employees. They are not using ladders at all nowadays. And they reduced all these falls from ladders to 0. They are using technical equipment. They are using fixed ladders. So everything is possible. But I want to concentrate on slip, trip, and falls. Here we have 2 figures. For example, the average statistic of Europe. I have to mention that not all statistics are 100% comparable, but I think it's a quite good number. 22.5 fatal injuries due to falls from all fatal injuries. Look to Germany, fatal injuries due to falls around 30% of all fatal injuries, very comparable. In construction, in Europe, it was 34%. In construction in Germany, 47%. So as an average, let's say 40% of all fatal injuries in the world, in the construction area, are related to falls. This is a huge amount. One figure here, 40% of all fatal injuries due to falls in companies less than 10 employees. This is statistical data from Europe. So small companies have higher rates. Other way around. So some example of fall accidents, only to give some pictures. It's always helpful in a presentation to see some pictures. We have fatal accidents in the world by fall and cleaning operation on glass or other not suitable, let's say for the weight of a man or a woman, not suitable to carry the load. People think, yes, we can walk on it. No, if it is not a special glass or other material, you can't walk on it. Here we had a fatal fall. It was a roof opening. There was a glass dome, but they had to repair it. They took it away. They don't make any fall protection. So here it was a deathly fall. In the morning, Mrs. Stolofta from Cyber showed us some pictures, unsecured stairs. Everywhere in the world, you still have these fatalities because they have no protection at all. At the stairs.
Sorry, Professor Kart. Sorry, I have to interrupt you. You seem to be too far from your system, so people are finding it difficult to hear. Yes.
Yeah, better now?
That's better now. Thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So fatal accidents at unsecured stairs. I said Ms. Stolofta already mentioned it this morning. We still have this situation all over the world, and a lot of fatalities only because of that. We have a lot of technical excellent solutions for this, but we have to do it. This is a fall from the footbridge into the river. If you see this kind of footbridge, you should stop the word immediately. It was not fatal, but very severe accident. Or here, fatal fall from the roof. There is a scaffold, but not sufficient. So this was fatal, or fatal during window cleaning. There are devices available inside the building to put as an anchor point and to put your personal protective equipment there. Or if you have huge cleaning on a facade, you can use facade scaffolds. Here, a fatal fall between scaffold and building. Seeing it from here, it looks quite good, but seeing it from the ground, you see the problem. It was a big gap between the scaffold and the building. Or fatal fall between the building and the scaffold. Here you have a facade scaffold, but the distance between the building and the scaffold is too much. It should be not more than 30 centimeters. Here we had a fatality as well. So we have to ask us, why do we tend to repeat some of our mistakes from the past or similar ones? You heard this morning from Paul Defil, the first regulation to prevent falls is more than 2,500 years old. It was in the fifth book of Moses in the Bible. And we have a lot of religion in this world. If you really look to the holy books, you will find in nearly all holy books some requirements. And so we are talking about it for thousands of years, but nothing changed. Or let's say nearly nothing changed. We still have this huge amount of falls and fatalities related to falls. For me, one of the main reasons is we have no safety culture. We have countries where safety culture is an issue. For example, the northern states in Europe, they have a good safety culture. And other states are working on that, but we have to look at this. And then we have to ask us, are we using the right methods to change this situation? And I have to say, we have a good method, and it is called Vision Zero. And remember, fatality rate in construction is around 2.5 times higher than all the
Sorry, Prof.
other industries. Yes.
Sorry, I have to
Yes.
interrupt you again. A number of people are struggling to hear you. Maybe you just come a
Really?
little
Still,
closer to the system. Yeah, we're struggling to hear you. So I
I'm
didn't
now.
they don't interpret
Okay.
the.
I'm now top. Okay,
Yes,
I'm now on the top of my computer.
that's
So you will
fine.
see my face very. Okay. So fatality rate in construction is around 2.5 times higher than in other industries. And therefore, we need a strategy. And as I said, to create safety culture, we have a wonderful strategy. It's called Vision Zero. And for me, it's more than a strategy. For me, it's already a movement in this world because more than 100 states in this world are working on that. And every month, it's getting more and more states following this idea, Vision Zero, this movement. And this is prevention strategy for a safe future without fatal or serious occupational diseases and work accidents. And we heard it this morning, illusion or mission possible. For me and for the lady this morning, yes, it is possible. Yes, we can do. You know that sentence from USA. We have the 7 golden rules, and I don't want to repeat the rules in detail, but I want to show you how can we implement fall protection measures in these 7 golden rules. So the first one, take leadership commitment. Paul said this morning, on every agenda, first item should be safety and health. And please believe me, I know some companies doing, a lot of companies doing it. Only this, it costs you nothing. But if you put safety and health always on the first item on every agenda, I want to highlight it. Every agenda, you will see everything will change in your company. And for example, set an example in respect to occupational safety and health. Maybe you will talk to your managers and to your staff. This year, we want to have 50% less falls. So then you should discuss how can we do it. It is a leadership commitment to work on that and to put pressure on the managers, especially the managers. Instantly react to unsafe conditions and behavior. Don't say, oh, the letter is maybe a little bit too short or it's not the correct letter, but continue. No, stop and change. And then people will get the feeling, wow, health and safety is important. Our managers, our leaders, they are taking care of us and they want a change. Identify hazard and risks. Okay, we know already the major accident causes. And so, first of all, you have to specify which kind of risk are the major ones in my company. Also, this morning we heard the company, they had a lot of problems with ladders, a lot of accident with ladders. So if this is the case, then you know, for our company, ladders is a big issue. So let's work on that first. Technical solutions are there. Only 10% of all reasons for accidents are related to technical issues. So information is important. And if you know how to prevent falls from ladders, then you will have solutions. Set targets for safety. Define your own OSH targets. My recommendation for construction companies is, if they are not already working on all these issues, say, okay, we want to prevent falls this year. This is our OSH target. And then you can make a campaign saying no falls. And that means if no falls happen, maybe you will give bonus to teams. I know many companies, they train, they talk to people and the working staff, and nothing changed or nearly nothing changed. And then they said, okay, if you achieve in 3 months maybe 20% less of this kind of accidents, you will get a bonus. Believe me or not, it changed everything. Or there was a question this morning, what is the maximum height for falls? The maximum height for falls could be 2 meters. Because if you make a campaign saying 2 max, 2 max is quite quickly in your brain. Everyone knows if we have more than 2 meters, we have to make a fall protection, a technical solution in the first run. If it is not possible, then maybe you can use personal protective equipment, but mostly it is possible. So 2 max. Although we know there are, for example, also fall protection necessary at 0, because close to water or close to material where you can sink, like a cement silo. But nevertheless, if you have more than 2 meters, you have to have a fall protection. Very simple to remember, very simple to control. Ensure a safe system. Make your managers responsible. Here I'm saying any 4, immediately personally report to CEO. In this time, it would be online. In future, maybe personally, direct. I know a company, a construction company in Belgium. They started it some years ago. That the CEO said every fatal accident or every fall or every severe accident, the manager has to come to me immediately. This clear message changed a lot, because now the managers felt responsible. They have to come to the CEO. They have to argue why it happened, who is responsible. So this could be one part of it. Implement a safe management system. So if you, and the big companies, they have management system, and also small ones started to create management systems, implement clear safety measures to prevent slip, trip, and falls. There are technical solutions. You can have a routine there, how to evaluate the risk, how to manage the solution to prevent the risk, and so on and so on. And the last one here, encouraging owner-client involvement, a very, very difficult issue. Try to convince the owner and the client that any slip, trip, and fall accident will extend the time for construction phase. If there is a severe accident or a fatality, the construction will stop, because then enforcement organizations will come, state representatives will come, maybe police and so on. So it is a stop for the construction site. And therefore, to prevent this, they should support any additional safety measure. Use safe and health technology. I think there we don't have to specify. As we said, only 10% is a problem related to technology. We have all the solutions available on the market, all of them. You only have to use it. You only have to know the solutions, and therefore we have to improve the qualification. Competence needs education. So how to prevent slip, trip, and falls? You have to know all these solutions. I will show you a few examples just after rule number 7. Then define the required qualification. Which measures are necessary to have the right qualification for that workplace? And set up a plan for training and instruction, very important. The last rule, invest in people. We heard it several times already today. Involve your employees. They know the problems. They have solutions. They have ideas. So use it and acknowledge good safety performance. So if there is a team which has no accidents for a month, which are motivated, please acknowledge it. And believe me or not, sometimes to say thank you is already a good acknowledgement. And develop confidence and a culture of prevention in your company. Then Vision Zero will be success. A few innovations only to show you. High Step, the worldwide first rail-based climbing system. This was a guy who used it, but not this. And then he said, okay, ladders are not safe. Even with fall protection, climbing on ladders is exhaustive. So using conventional lifts instead, it is mostly much too expensive. So therefore, he invented this climbing system, which covers all these advantages of a ladder. The High Step system was born. If you want to get more information about it, you can go to internet, High Step system. Or here, very simple, covering previous to lights. Very often we have these accidents. You make this kind of bridge made of steel. That is simple to do it, and you are protected for these, let's say, inspection or other things you have to do there. Or fall arrest system for scaffold works. We have this developed in Europe, And there are many, many other systems. You saw it this morning also in the presentation of Mrs. Stolofta. But we have to take care of these erectors of scaffolds, because you can't build a scaffold to secure the scaffold workers. So we have a lot of technical devices to do it. One thing, we have many, many languages all over the world, and I said it this morning in my in the inauguration. We need pictures without language, and therefore we make drawings of bad examples next to good ones. No written language, can be used worldwide. It is open source, everyone can use it. And we have 43 scenarios in the construction section. I will give you some examples for the slip, trip, and falls. Left side, wrong. Right side, right. Wonderful picture we saw this morning from Mrs. Stolofta. It was the same situation in real. Here, we don't need any explanation. Everyone can understand.
Apologies, Prof. Just a minute to go.
Yeah, okay. I will speed up. So here you have good and bad. I think everyone can understand. You can use it also in your brochures, in the construction, in your company. And this is prevention through pictures. Go to the ILO website or to the website of ISA Construction, you will find it. And I will finalize the presentation with a sequence of pictures emphasizing the importance of all participants of this online conference cooperating in future to improve the situation due to falls. I got the permission from the person falling here. It's a real fall accident. Cameras filmed it. And he said, yes, if it will help, please use it. This was the working site on the roof. And this was a camera inside the hall. And if you look to the left, you see the red spot here. You see that the covering of that hole was breaking. It was an old asbestos plate which was breaking. And this is a person falling down to the concrete floor of this hall. And it was 8 meters. Normally, this is fatal, but the person survived, and he gave me the right to show it and to motivate people. We are not talking about theory, we are talking about practice. It happened. And therefore, I hope it is a kick-off for you to think more about preventing falls, maybe to change systems in your company. And I would like to say thank you for your attention, and I hope I could give you some motivation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Prof. Carl, for the very insightful presentation. You have indeed provided a multidimensional perspective to the improvement of occupational safety and health, particularly in the construction industry. I think this has been quite a great and wonderful presentation. Thank you so much, Prof, for that. It's a pleasure. Let me just check if there's been a question. I think I only have the last question. Maybe a question from my side. In your last words, in terms of ensuring that organizations or institutions implement improvement opportunities to their systems, what would be your key advice in simple words?
First, please make health and safety the topic num of every meeting. I had a friend with a company, a medium-sized company, and he contacted me. And then I told him, wow, I have 7 golden rules. He said, it's too much, make it more simple. And then I said, make health and safety always the first item. 3 months later, he called me and said, everything changed. Now you can explain me the other rules as well. So make health and safety an issue. That's the first step forward. And there are many, many professionals who can help companies to implement all the other things, but make health and safety rule number 1. That's it.
Thank you very much. Absolutely fantastic. Thank you. This has been quite a great presentation. Thank you, Prof. Yeah, in the interest of time, we'll move on to the next presenter, such that if we have got time, towards the end, we'll also get questions that participants may ask. Thank you so much, Prof. Now, moving on, I would like to welcome Richard Whitaker from South Africa, who is the founder of RHESQ. This afternoon, is going to talk to us about the role of the designer built for life. We all know that in order to embrace or incorporate all the safety and health aspects, they have to be embraced even in the design stages of every activity or piece of equipment. So this afternoon, we look ahead to a great and exciting presentation from Whitaker. Over to you, Richard.
Thanks, Dr. Moyo. Let me share the screen. There we go. Talk to me. Thank you. There we go.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Moyo.
Really sorry.
Yeah, and thank you, A, for you and your team for setting this conference up. I find it most enlightening. Some time ago, as you can see from my front slide there, I moved from construction as a civil engineer into health and safety. And it's become something very close to my heart, I must admit. So I'd like to talk about the background, particularly in South Africa, to the issue around safe design. And then I'll talk about whose design is it, give you some examples of what we had recently in South Africa. And after conclusion, I will have one question for you. So please pay attention, there'll be points awarded. Prior to 2003, there was no legislation specific to construction works, but we did have the building works within the general safety regulations. And that had 12 regulations that covered issues that could be considered to be those of construction. When the construction regulations eventually came out, there were 28 different regulations. So obviously a much more focused document. So the whole background to this is that there have been numerous incidents of structural failure of both permanent and temporary works, and people tend to overlook temporary works quite a bit, as we'll see in my presentation. These led to avoidable deaths and injuries, and it was all triggered. The construction regulations of 2003 were all triggered by what I like to call the final straw. In 1998, the Njaka Bridge was being built, and it's being built by incremental launching. For those of you who don't know what incremental launching is, the piece of bridge that would normally span between the two columns is built on solid ground and then jacked out over the bearings of the columns. And there's a leading edge there. I think you can see in that there's a steel structure in the front which picks up the landing on the next column. Something went wrong, and things that went wrong were insufficient reinforcement, incorrect placing of bearings, incorrect interpretation of problems that arose, and as you can see, the last straw was that it broke the bridge's back, and we killed 14 people there, and 9 were injured. The investigation went on for a long time, and it was 2002 before the results came out. And in that, the inspector of labour pointed his finger at the consulting engineers who didn't have any independent design reviews for the contract. And the appointed bridge engineer had insufficient experience in incrementally launched bridges. That engineer died during the accident. Construction company left the design of temporary works to an unregistered civil engineer and ignored reinforcing inadequacy as identified by an experienced but unqualified supervisor. And lastly, the government department for whom the bridge was being built was slated for not having an independent design review as was required in terms of the contract. So this led to the development of the construction regulations. The initial version in 2003 had no designer's duties. They were amended in February 2014, having been put out.
14. Et ça a commencé en 2010, au fait, pour arriver à cela. Ça a pris 3 ans, qu'à cela ne tienne. Et même, il y a eu un guide qui devait commencer en 2014, qui a été accepté en 2017. Mais la question est, à qui appartient cette conception? Est-ce les clients? Et est-ce qu'il y a des obligations par rapport à la loi?
De avaliação de risco, todos que é uma avaliação de risco exigido no regulamento. Podia ser o desenhador, que inclui o arquiteto, desenhador ou até o paisagista. E por isso, estes é que são os especialistas. O que é que isto vai levar em consideração para depois de ser mantido? Nós vimos essa imagem de... Temos a folha de vidro que ajuda na separação. Os contratantes têm um desenho também com alternativas. Para que é o mais fácil.
And do they consider the health and safety specification? And then is it built in terms of the drawing or the specification, or is our material substandard, left out? And then of course we must look at temporary works, which are the contractor's responsibility. And even not in just construction, but also in demolition, we need some sort of designer's input as well. So in terms of the client who has legal obligations in view of the OSH Act, with a duty of the employer to others, not necessarily employees, and the construction regulations, which I'm going to discuss shortly, there are other obligations too. The ergonomic regulations, we look at associated injuries with building and or maintaining the structure. Hazardous chemical substances being used in the design and the material design or in construction. The hazardous biological agents, and right now COVID's in the forefront of our minds. And then the general safety regulations, which, as I said, were used for construction prior to 2003. So looking at those responsibilities of the client in a little bit more detail. I'm not going to go through them in one by one, but there is quite a comprehensive list of duties. And perhaps you should look at equating them to those required by legislation in your mother countries. One has to ask, are clients aware of these responsibilities? Or do they just ignore them? They could not know about them out of innocence, but they could know about them and just ignore them. And then one must ask, should the designer not intervene? Because the client must pass the health and safety spec to the designer. If he doesn't do that, then the designer should come back to the client and say, where is it? And that would highlight the responsibilities. The other question is on smaller structures, do building inspectors even ask to see these documents? And if not, why not? So as I mentioned earlier, even though the building gets built as the structure gets built as designed, the owner must still inspect this building for integrity every 6 months for the first 2 years after completion, and yearly thereafter. And that is a reactive regulation. That yearly thereafter applies to any structure. It doesn't matter whether it was built before 2014 or 2003. Whenever it was built, it should have a yearly inspection, and the client must then ensure that the building is maintained safe for continued use. Again, the designer has a long list of duties. And as I said, if the client hasn't produced a health and safety specification, why isn't the designer asking for it so that he can do his duties? And the designer must incorporate safety standards, which are listed in the OSH Act and the regulations. It must include the health and safety info, such as geotech. This should advise the client of anticipated dangers in terms of the safe execution of the works, and then take into account hazards of maintenance. At the end of the job, it should be inspected for compliance by the designer, and if the designer isn't mandated for that, then the health and safety agent appointed by the client should do that work. And there should be a final inspection as required by national building regulations. And I've added there as an asterisk that the designer should provide a checklist for ongoing inspections at the 6 monthly and after that yearly inspections. Otherwise, how will the client know what to inspect? As far as the contractor is concerned, I'm looking specifically at temporary works designer. And the temporary works design should include all anticipated loads, including those imposed by temporary works, such as reinforcing being stacked in the slab whilst you're waiting to fix the next slab up. And that temporary works design must be aligned to the structural design drawings. The contractor has to do a risk assessment, and during demolition, there should be a detailed structural survey by a designer. There should be integrity check by a designer, and the inadequate shoring and bracing and stability of adjoining structures should be addressed by a designer. So the Njaka Bridge was to have been the last straw. And in that one, we looked at the client, the design, the contractor, temporary works design, risk assessment wasn't there, substandard workmanship or design, reinforcing missing, inexperienced engineers. So the construction regulation of 2003, and I've used that because most of the examples I give are related to prior to 2003 or prior to 2014 when the second one came out. The application is universal for all construction work, and a lot of people miss this one, except that you don't need a health and safety specification under specific conditions. There doesn't have to be a principal contractor's health and safety plan, nor does the subcontractor have a health and safety plan. And the subcontractor's health and safety plan doesn't have to be produced where construction work was greater than 50% complete at the 18th of July 2003 when the regulations were promulgated. But all other regulations in the 2003 version were applicable irrespective of construction status. And yet, we still have numerous examples. I just want to say that a number of these instances are still sub judice, as inquiries have not always all been completed or judgments published. Apart from this first example, the trigger, all the other instances shown here fell under the purview of construction regulations. The shortcomings highlighted are not necessarily those determined by investigations, but represent plausible scenarios to provide indicative causes and possible solutions. And of course, condolences are offered to the families of those whose lives were lost in these incidents, and likewise to those injured. On the N2 National Road at Kucha, near Port Elizabeth on the south coast of South Africa, this incident happened just 4 months after the 2003 construction regulations were published, and which in itself should have provided additional health and safety focus, but alas, not so. Excuse me. Typically, because this isn't an isolated incident, typically this would have been caused by concrete dumped in one location and then being vibrated to another, which would create an initial temporary high point loading, and it would induce lateral loading on the substructure as the concrete was vibrated across. Could also be that the false work was not designed per se. It could be using standard units, and it was assumed it would work. And doubtless, there was a great shortage of horizontal bracing, diagonal bracing, to stop horizontal movement. And the combination of these effects was that the whole structure collapsed in this fashion. So again, it's contractor's methodology, temporary works design, and the client agent checks on design compliance. More recently, just over 18 months ago, a structure in a school collapsed, which resulted in the death of 4 people and 22 injuries. There was a walkway between the first floor and classrooms that collapsed. I'm going to look at these in detail, and we can see, if you look closely at this picture, you can see signs of rust on top left-hand side. The arrow pointing below shows you where the jacks were to lift the slab up, which would initially have been flat on the floor, and also some rust occurring just under the tree branch on top there.
Hi, Whitaker, just to let you know, you left with 5 minutes to go. Okay, I will rush through this. Thank you. Okay, you can see the rust there. Now the question I asked there is.
Oui, la question que je pose là. Comment est-ce que la maintenance de cette école devait avoir lieu?
And these pictures. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Could you mute, please? In Durban, a similar situation where
Nous avons eu une situation similaire à Durban.
And the contractor working up there had obviously not done risk assessment. Sorry, that one there. This was a classic.
Ceci a été très classique au mall de Somerset à Cape Town en
2018, injuring one person. There was
feriu uma pessoa, houve uma inspeção de desenho de...
Fix that and be fine. But there was no risk assessment review and no inspection regime. So again, in February, 18 months later, in February 2020, the same thing happened in the same place. Obviously, no inspection regime set up there at all. This was work being carried out, renovating a building in something in South Africa, in Stellenbosch. Again, the designer had poor, inadequate design or inspection protocol, no review of temporary works design, no risk assessment, and so on and so forth. This building was under construction and collapsed, supposedly due to lack of strength in one particular column, but this is still being investigated and there's no actual outcome yet. But there were temporary works involved, overloading of slabs during construction, and that sort of thing. I'm going through this very quickly now. And then in October 2015, we had a temporary structure being built over the freeway, and that collapsed. The people killed were people traveling in cars that got crushed by the bridge as it collapsed. As far as I know, there were no contractors injured at all. There was no client risk assessment before the road was closed, open for the traffic to use it. There was no substandard client agent checks on compliance, no temporary works design. There was an informal design, but even that wasn't followed. Components were omitted, and there was no pre-opening inspection. The engineer and the manager were unqualified and experienced, and no contractor risk assessment. There, we're looking at exactly the same thing 20 years previously. Exactly the same problem. The people doing the work weren't doing their work properly, and the people designing it weren't qualified to design it. So, look at legislation and look at compliance. I looked at enforcement. How do we do it? The legislation is pretty good. Pretty good. It's taken a while to get it right, but it's pretty good. People seem to ignore it. So how do we enforce compliance? And why don't we enforce it? Again, it's the usual story of safety costs money. Well, I bet those last two jobs cost a lot more than a bit of safety. So we look at just common sense. And as Winston Churchill said, those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. When I say designed for life, do I need the life of the building or whose life? Thank you.
Thank you very much for the great presentation. It's quite exciting, but however, I think the key issue, it brings us to the attention of paying particular attention even to all these past incidences and occurrences that you've mentioned. I like your concluding remark from Winston Churchill that those that fail to learn from history are doomed to repeat it. I think those are strong words as we move within the paradigm of occupational safety and health. All these happenings in the past, they must be able to guide and direct us as we move into the future, as we continuously improve the practice of occupational safety and health. Thank you so much, Ritaka. That was a great presentation. Excellent.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you. I will pose some questions maybe towards the end in the last speaker. We're trying to catch up with time. We're slightly behind. So thank you so much, Ritaka. Without much further ado, I'd like to call upon Dmitry Platygin from All Russia Research Institute of Labor, all the way from Russia. Over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for inviting me. My presentation is about factors influencing implementation of safety culture in construction companies in Russia. And this is not to say that we have succeeded in creating a safety culture in construction industry, but there are some interesting findings that I would like to share with you. Well, first of all, I would like to give you a few numbers about accidents in construction industry in Russia. Accidents on construction sites account for 13% of all the accidents in Russia. And last year we had 321 fatal accidents on construction sites, which is much higher than in any other sphere. The majority of accidents lead to concomitant injuries, musculoskeletal injuries and diseases, and head injuries. The most accidents happen to drivers, road workers, masons, and other construction occupations. Basically, it reflects the causes of fatalities. 30% of all the accidents in construction relate to falling from height, and about 20% of accidents happen on roads. Of course, in recent years, we have the number of fatalities has fallen dramatically. However, we realize that the majority of accidents are associated with organizational factors and human factor. In fact, the accidents happen due to failure in management systems and lack of a culture of safety. that is values, beliefs, and behavioral patterns that are inherent to the culture of safety and prevention. A few years ago, we made a research among construction companies. We proposed a tool for running diagnostic of maturity level of safety culture in a company. So we created a list of factors that seem to be important and divided all the respondents, all the personnel in the construction company into 4 groups: top managers, supervisors, occupational safety professionals, and workers. The idea behind that method was to capture differences in respondents' opinions on what factors are important, are more important or less important for creating a culture of safety. The respondents were asked whether a specific factor is important for preventing accidents on a construction site. Here you can see the distribution of answers in percentage with different colors marking different groups of employees. As you can see, the majority of each group believe that awareness about hazards and risks, as well as good training, are very important for preventing accidents. You can also see that clear distribution of responsibilities and roles is important for top managers and workers, whereas safe equipment and modern technologies used are more valued by workers and occupational safety professionals. And at the next slide, you can see that opinions of different groups of respondents regarding the other factors are very much different. Top managers believe that leadership and management system is absolutely important for preventing accidents. For workers and line managers, it is also important to have occupational management system implemented in practice. Having visual information like safety signs, posters, warning notices is also important for all groups except for OSH professionals. Next, we asked the same group of people which of the factors mentioned had been already implemented in a construction company. Again, here you can see the answers which are not promising, unfortunately. Not many things are in place, but I would like to draw your attention to the fact that different groups of personnel think in different ways about what had been implemented. Top managers think that leadership is very important and they believe that they are in practice leading by example. They believe they demonstrate leadership. However, the answers of workers and supervisors show us that it is not the case from their point of view. Where I can give you another example. Half of top managers are sure there is an opportunity for employees to discuss the safety issues with a supervisor. And on the other hand, only 25% of workers and less than 10% of supervisors think so. So at this slide, you can see that opinions regarding the implementation of safety culture elements are so much different. And this is a big issue. You cannot create a culture of safety until all of the employees and managers agree about basic things, such as what is important, what is not, and what each element of the culture means. In fact, creation of a safety culture means that views and opinions of employees and managers must be closer to each other. The problem arises when top managers, line managers, and workers live in let me put it this way, in parallel worlds. And it's very hard to bring about changes in such a situation. So joint work and involvement of employees and managers is a key to creating a safety culture. Based on that research and other researches from all around the world, we came up with a 3-layer model. Basically speaking, one can identify 3 layers in a culture of safety. The first one is employees' personal values and beliefs. It's a, so to say, personal characteristic of personnel. The values are cultivated both in families and at work sites. And at this level, an employee is concerned with his personal safety. It's very important to make incentives whenever an employee demonstrates commitment to safety values. It's also important to understand what are values of your personnel regarding the safety issues. The next layer, the second circle, is about company's risk culture. The risk culture is about how company is dealing with all kinds of risks, what instruments are deployed. Among others, it's important to have all the risks assessed. It's important to have all the employees trained in the correct manner and involve them. It's important to measure success in controlling the risks. At this level, personal beliefs and values are complemented with knowledge and awareness about risks at a specific concrete workplace. Personal safety is being, so to say, transformed into collective safety. Everyone is concerned with his own safety and with the safety of others. Finally, the last layer, the big circle of a culture, is about how you encourage your employees. What are, so to say, attributes of a culture of safety, and how you use data to manage risks. At this level, risk issues must be incorporated into decision-making at all levels of management. When we recommended this model for implementation, we pointed out that it's important not to be satisfied with the visible attributes of a safety culture, which are at the third layer. But it's important to go deeper and shape personal values and beliefs and behavioral patterns of personnel. There are a few steps to fostering a culture of safety. First of all, we need to run a diagnostic and find out what are the current stereotypes, values, and beliefs of employees. Based on that research, one can answer another question. Is the current culture suitable for a company? Will it help us achieve our goal? Going back to our research, you can remember that there were so many different views on the same things from top managers, workers, and supervisors, which was the evidence that there is no solid basis for shaping a culture of safety in that kind of company. So the next step would be to identify which factors can influence the safety culture and what instruments can be deployed. The first step is to make a good plan, which means that you have a team, clear tasks, dates, and resources, of course. Otherwise, it will be a lot of paperwork. And the next step is monitoring, analysis, and assessment of companies' activities based on the plan. If we see that something is not working, there is a clear need to understand why and make some corrections. Basically, it is a dynamic cycle. And the final step is to maintain and develop the safety culture. It is a day-to-day work, and a very important thing is to adapt to the culture, new incoming employees, and spread your culture to the supplying companies. So based on that research, we invented online electronic diagnostic tool, which help the companies to assess the maturity level of a culture of safety. That's it. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Platin, for that wonderful presentation. Culture is a critical issue that needs to be prioritized in each and every circumstance within each business operations. Quite interesting when you depict the three different layers of the dimensions of culture. When you look at basically the industrial safety culture, the risk culture, and the employees' personal values and beliefs, I think that's quite important. Oftentimes, we tend to concentrate on the visible attributes. But I think this afternoon you have highlighted that we need to go through those three layers of culture. That was quite excellent. Thank you so much. Maybe just one question from myself is to say, in all organizations, what are the ABCs of fostering a culture that will drive us towards zero harm? Just in three basic, simple steps for the participants. Thank you. Hello, I'm not very sure whether I'm audible on the other side.
Dimitri, you need to unmute yourself so you can answer that question.
Yes, thank you. Sorry about that. So 3A. Oh, that's a difficult question actually. So ABCs. The point here is that A is the beliefs and values of your employees, with which they come from outside the company, with which they come from their families. The second one is so to say, collective safety. You have to create atmosphere of collective safety. You have to make the safety issues important, not only personal safety, but collective safety issues important. And the second one, you have to spread the culture to the organizations with which you work. You have to establish incentives. You have to encourage your employees. And the key thing here is that very often we are trying to establish, so to say, attributes of a safety culture. Like we are awarding somebody, we are encouraging somebody, but we are not going deeper to the first circle, to the personal beliefs. And a company, along with family, along with, say, universities, along with kindergarten, a company is responsible for shaping values and beliefs that relate to safety.
Thank you very much. That's absolutely fantastic. Excellent. Thank you so much. That's very enlightening. Great. Thank you so much. We will now move over to our next presenter, who is going to conclude session 3 this afternoon. And I would like to hand over to Manuel Estivao Valon, who is the founder of Amositra in Mozambique. This afternoon is going to talk to us about the ways to prevent occupational accidents in the construction industry. I think, like I mentioned beforehand, that improvement of occupational safety and health is quite fundamental, and it has to be prioritized in each and every aspect of any organization. And this afternoon, I've got the pleasure to hand over to Emmanuel Valoy to give us great insights this afternoon. Over to you, Manuel. There seems to be a technical issue. I don't know whether it's on my side. I can't hear Manuel, but your screen is projecting.
I think the noise has stopped, so we're waiting for him.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Volley. Something is wrong with your mic. Something is wrong with your mic. Can you please control that?
There seem to be technical difficulties from Manuel, and what we may do right now, for time's sake, we may have to move to the next speaker and come back to him once that is fixed. Is that okay by everybody? Because time is fast spent. Manuel, can you hear us? But we can't hear you. We can't hear you here. You know what you do? Yeah, we can see your slides, but we can't hear you. You try and fix that, and we'll come back to you if that works, okay? Okay. Dr. Moyo?
All right, thank you very much. I think he was the last speaker on technical session 3. That means we might have to hand over to.
Can you hear?
Hello, Valoy?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I can hear you now. Please
okay,
go
thank
ahead.
you very much. Oh, apologize for. Okay, you can see my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes, your screen is visible. Just put it on
Okay, thank you very much,
slideshow.
Mr. Moyo, for the opportunity. Thank you very much, Mr. Moyo. As you have been introducing myself, my name is Manuel. I'm the founder of the Mozambican Occupational Health and Safety Association. And it's an association which actually comprises about 300 safety practitioners and was created in 2017. The way I see this presentation, the way I prepared this presentation was to to talk about these ways of preventing accidents in the construction industry. First of all, even having seen many definitions of accidents here, I would like also to emphasize that any unexpected or unplanned occurrence, including acts of violence arising out of connection with work, we can consider these as a work accidents. This definition I took in ILO, International Labour Organization site. What will guide me in this presentation is to talk about Mozambique. We'll give you a background of what is Mozambique, the major construction safety hazards in Mozambique, and I will evaluate the hazards, and then at last I will talk about how to prevent these accidents to happen, not in Mozambique, but the ways of prevention of accidents is applied everywhere. So Mozambique is a country located in Africa, which have got borders in the north side. It's bordered by Tanzania, and it's bordered also by South Africa and Eswatini in the south side. And in the west side is bordered by the Indian Ocean. Zambia and Malawi is making the borders in the west sides of Mozambique. Our population is at about 30 million people, and it's expected 55% here of life, and we've got 12% of people living with HIV. The labor force in Mozambique is about 12 million and 12.9 million, and the rate of unemployment in Mozambique is 25%. This information I got from the report, the last report from the Mozambican Labor Department, which I will take the opportunity also to thank in the person of the National Inspector of Labor. Thank you very much for sharing this information to me. My presentation will be based on information from 2015 and 19. And I'm going now to talk about the major construction accidents in Mozambique, which is not different with the other accident types which was presented here. We talk about vehicle and equipment related accidents, fall from height, falling objects, electrocution, being trapped, or in contact with hazardous substances. If you can see here in the graphs, in yellow, you can see it's referring to the 2015, in red 2016, 2017 in green, and it's coming down. It's this sequence up to 2019. If you can see that the graphs, the tendency of the graphs is decreasing. In 2015, we had in Mozambique related to a vehicle and equipment accident 105, and in 2016 we had 115, and these went down up to 85 in 2019. The tendency of the graph is decreasing. As you can see, this happened for vehicle accident, tendency of decreasing, and falling from height also we had the same tendency, and falling of object we had also the same tendency, which was decreasing accident. So it means that each year, 2015, 2016 to 2019, the approach, what was happening in Mozambique, the introduction of the safety culture, or the conference, National Conference of Safety, brought into the labor force a new vision of safety, which obliged many companies to have in their program a safety plan, and believing that a good planning it is the key for all prevention, the government of Mozambique introduced the labor inspection department. This labor inspection department, although it's not sufficient, do not have enough people to control or to get all these related accident information, they could get this information that I'm sharing to you. And we also can see that even the efforts that was taken by the Mozambican Labor Department, which was not enough. In 2015, we had here 11 fatalities in the construction sector. These 11 fatalities, I can highlight that 7 of them was related to a scaffolding collapse in a construction, in a building construction in Maputo City, where 14 people got seriously injured and 7 people could not resist, and they passed away. We also had fatality in 2016. I have to bring it to you the way the labor department is organized in Mozambique. They do not comprise all the informations according to the sector of activity. So it was a general information. What the inputs I'm giving is because I was involved in some incident investigation. So Mozambique is divided in sectors of activities, and all this information is gathering. That's why you have all these numbers. This is not the numbers especially for construction, but it's the number for the whole sections of activity in Mozambique. But construction have proven that had an intervention of more than 60% in the accidents.
Just to let you know, Mr. Valeri, that we have 5 minutes to go.
So what we do prevent in construction, and there is nothing more than having a safety planning. All companies who do not have the safety planning are condemned to have injuries or accidents in the area. Mr. Moyo Dingane here, when he referred to Winston Churchill, where he said, fail to learn is, when you fail to learn, you will probably repeat the history. It's happening the same thing with the planning. If you fail to plan, you are also condemned to fail. So safety training is that what we expect. We advise for all companies, all employers to educate the workers in the safety policy and safety procedures. It's also a requirement that employees do not operate any equipment if they are not qualified to do so. We can see in Africa, especially in Mozambique, that once a person just knows how to operate, it's very easy, and it's a cheap labor force. Most of the employers tends to give them the machine to operate, exposing the same employee and the others into different types of accidents. In the middle of the construction journey, there is a safety meeting that must be directed to all employees. If you don't have the safety meeting with the people, you will never know what are the hazards, the main hazards, what is the status of the construction at all, and you will not have the opportunity to explain to the employees about the statistics of the work. You will not have the opportunity to discuss day-to-day how to improve the culture of the safety culture. You won't have the opportunity to discuss the accidents and everything that happened in the construction sites. It's very important to have the safety meeting with the employees. This is one of the prevention that I see for the construction accidents. In Africa, especially in Mozambique, we can see that employers tend to not provide the required equipment to the employees. It's believed that PPE it's expensive. This is our reality. For sure, safety is not cheap, but safety is number one, is the only one way to have the people back home in the same way they came to work. So if you have to protect people's life, it's not possible to make it without providing a good PPE to the people, and this is not negotiable. It's important that employers explain to the people the importance of having this PPE. It's not enough that the employer provide the PPE if the employer do not train the employee in the use of the required PPE. And if the employee do not understand the importance of having this PPE, for sure you will have accidents, and there is a condition, clear condition. I see also the housekeeping as one of the prevention methods. If you keep your workplace clean or free from any debris, this can reduce the probabilities of having injuries inside. If you don't clean your site, you don't organize your site, there is a chance of having trippings, you have falls and slips due to these not organized sites. So employees should store their equipment and materials when they are finished off the work. Some of the employees think that they have no time, or according to what I've witnessed in Mozambique, is that supervisors usually do not give times for the employees to organize their tools, their materials at the end of the work activity. So it's important that employers in the person of the director or the most senior person in the company, enforce the need of having the site in a good working conditions.
Mr.
So
Valeri,
if
our time is up.
Okay, and equipments and tool maintenance. Thank you very much. I will note that the time is going. Before using any piece of equipment or machinery, workers should ensure that proper working is in order. So workers should be taught how to use the equipment and how to keep it safe. Prevention of falls. Most of the accidents in construction, as I said in the graph, it's related to falling from heights and also collapsing of scaffolding. So there are two types of accident that is most killing in Africa. In Mozambique is also falling at heights and collapsing of scaffolding, and also vehicle-related accident. So I will go straight to my watching the commitment of the Mozambican government through the occupational health and safety. To show the commitment, the Mozambique in the Constitution, the article number 8 of the Constitution of Mozambique talks about the needs of, or the obligation of providing a good working condition to the employees. The Labor Department, the Labor Law also, on Chapter 6, also Articles 216 to 236 talks about health and safety requirement. The last ratified conventions in Mozambique was the Labor Inspection Convention and the Convention for Safety at Mines. Although there is from 100 and international conventions, Mozambique have ratified 19 conventions, and this shows clearly that we are still too far to have the safety system implemented in Mozambique. In Mozambique, we have most of the decrees that regulates health and safety is from the colonial area, even knowing that Mozambique have adhered to ILO in 1976, 1 year after the independence. Only 19 conventions and protocols have been ratified. It is a concern of AMSETRA we represent that we're still working through legislation from 1996, 1971, and the legislation of 1973, 120 of 1973, which is too old, do not reflect the real situation of the construction and all work in Mozambique. So thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank
I'm
you
giving
very
back
much.
to you, Mr. Moyo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Valoy, for the great insight on the issues, particularly the background from the Mozambique statistics. That's quite revealing, and I hope our participants have grasped quite significant information. We have run out of time. Maybe what are the key challenges that Mozambique is facing in terms of culture? Maybe just a minute on that, and we'll move on to the next session.
Well, in terms of culture, the key challenge that Mozambique is facing is the use and issuing of personal protective equipment and also collective equipment. So because the legislation in Mozambique still do not obligate or oblige the companies to have the specific PPE, it only shows in generally, do not go deep. It just says, for example, that the employer should provide PPE for the people. and it's not clear for some employers. They use this gap of the legislation for not providing all required. So it's difficult to manage construction site in Mozambique because of unclearness of the legislation, the safety legislation.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Valoy. Quite insightful revelations. Without much further ado, we have run out of time. I'll immediately hand over to Professor Karl-Heinz, who is chairing the next session. Thank you so much for all the presenters who have just completed their presentation in this session. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Degani. And I'm happy to share the last session today. And it's not working. Can you hear me?
You are very faint. You are very faint.
Oh, wait a second. Is it better now?
From my side, it's still very faint.
Okay, maybe I try different.
Bluetooth mode.
Is it better now? Can you hear me now better?
Yeah, now
it's better, Karl-Heinz. Yes.
Quite better. Okay, then the device is out of order. I tried it once again, but I have to buy a new one. So once again, I'm happy to share the last session. And the topic of the last session is harmful substances in construction. This is a very, let's say, interesting issue because many people in construction do not realize how many harmful substances we are using in construction. And today we will focus on some of them. And I heard some years ago, I heard that every year in the world, more than 50,000 new hazardous substances are coming to the market. So it is a huge amount, and I think quite difficult to follow all these hazardous substances. And then you start to mix them, and then it's getting even worse. So it is a very interesting topic, which is under-evaluated in construction from the employers, but also from the employees. Therefore, I'm very happy to have these three speakers. And I want to focus once again on the issue. We had a lot of discussion using personal protective equipment. I want to say we have a stop principle. That means the first one is S, substitution, especially for harmful substances. It's very important. And then T for technical solution, then O for organization, and at the end, personal protective equipment. Very often, it is the other way around in our, let's say, construction life. So S is the most important, and I'm happy that the first speaker, Norbert Kluger, a colleague of mine for a long time and a good friend as well, and he is head of department in our organization for hazardous substances. He is well experienced, and he is head of a lot of working groups, international and national. So I'm happy to give you the floor now, and the topic is use of hazardous materials in construction yesterday, today, and in future. Please, Norbert.
Can you see the screen?
Yes, you only have to make it bigger.
Oh no. Ah, yes.
Yes, sir. Correct.
Yes, it's good.
Not yet, but maybe it takes. Yeah, now it's fine. Now it's fine. Thank you.
But I can't see my presentation. That's not my slide.
Machinery and other equipment. No.
Ah, here I am.
You are close to it now. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait a second. It takes time. Yeah, now it's there.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Karl-Heinz, for the invite myself. And I'm very, with a great pleasure to be here on this international conferences. 2 years ago, I was in Africa, in the south, and Namibia, and Botswana, and I see the country and I like it very well. You must hear it from me. Okay, let's talk in this session a little bit more about hazardous substances in construction. Even as other hazards during construction are often more in focus of prevention, the danger related to the health of employees of hazardous substances must not overlook. For a long time in the past, construction safe always been placed where hazardous substances occurred. It has been the case in the past, that's ways today, and we also look the future with caution. No materials just around the corner to be used in construction. As you see on the photo, I am working in this area of hazardous materials for nearly 60 years. On the slide, you can see some of my main topics. And please believe me, in all this time, I have not been bored. If you look carefully around at the construction site, there are a lot of hazardous materials in construction. As we all know, the modern construction industry uses products from the chemical industry as large extent and with increasing tendency. When using these products, hazardous substances can be created or released. The products are often used, make in this time marked by hazard symbols. You'll see it on the slide, it's globalized all over the world, it's the same now. The other case, the dangerous as instead as asbestos, wood dust, or silica dust only during processing. Then the hazards are not often directly recognized. It is impossible for me to talk about the field of all hazardous materials in construction. There I have decided to look at the topic from the point of view hazardous substances in yesterday, today, and in the future. I will present this assessment to you using 3 examples. The risk of asbestos, you all know it, was already known in the early 20th of the century. The use of asbestos has been banned in Germany since 1993. Nevertheless, around 1,500 people died every year as asbestos-related disease every year. The risk of asbestos exposure already known since long time. However, it is also easy to see on the slide that after a latency period of around 30 or 50 years, the catastrophic consequences of the careless use of the wonder materials asbestos become visible. Even under the impression of the curve shape of the graph, it was a long time general public opinion that asbestos was primarily a problem of the past. But it is often the case with problems that have not been fully resolved in the past. The subject of asbestos is catching up us again. It was only known since 2015 that asbestos was also used in additives in wall plasters, fillers, and filers, and up until around 1995. So we all have to understand that asbestos is not a thing of the past, neither in Europe, still in the whole world. In some countries, in particular, people often work today with asbestos without any protection. Every 5 minutes died a person in the world of asbestos. And the worst thing is the dying goes on every day. The dreadful effect of asbestos fibers on human bodies are long since known. A ban constitutes the only responsible way to put an end of this effect. 2 million tons of asbestos continued to produce and put on the market every year. From nearly 200 countries up until now, only 55 have banned the use of asbestos. So many countries in the world still import asbestos for using in construction. In my mind, without a real-wide ban of asbestos, there will never be a vision zero. Please keep this in mind. Look at today. As you know, the modern construction industry uses chemical products at a large extent and increasing tendency. Epoxy resins are such chemicals products which are in the moment very trendy. Due to their excellent technical properties, epoxy resins products are in use in a wide variety of application and construction. They're used as two compound systems on site. The epoxy resins are often mixed in large quantities directly on construction site. For epoxy resins products, they are in the construction industry a wide array of use. For example, industrial flow coating, till adhesives, primers, adhesives, concrete repair products, and much more. But the bad side is, however, it not handles safe, epoxy resin can produce harmful to health. Epoxy resins are among the most common causes of occupational allergic contact dermatitis. Directly contact can cause burns or irritation, may lead to allergies. Every year, many employees in the construction industry develop skin allergies as a result of skin contact with uncured epoxy resin. Often, these employees are not longer able to work with epoxy resins, many of them forced to give up their jobs. When working with epoxy resins, good skin protection and good skin care are essential. It is essential to wear protective clothes and protective gloves. In addition, the skin should be carefully cleaned and cared. Never use leather gloves. Leather gloves are often no protection against these compounds. Never put protective gloves on over dirty or damp hands. Change gloves every one shift. And in addition, you know all the things about COVID-19. We have new substances in a large range on construction site. What brings the future? New building materials will be used in construction sites in the next few years. Carbon fibers are such concrete, for example, modern building materials that we have to keep on eye on. Carbon fibers in concrete are technically fantastic building. You see these pictures, it's wonderful. Those fibers are more durable than steel and don't corrodate. Therefore, it is possible to build smaller and longer lasting structures. A large number of fiber-based reinforcement of different qualities, design, and materials are already available on the market. Currently, these materials are mainly used in high corrosive structures. Overall, however, the market volume of fiber reinforced concrete is at the moment not really small. For that reason, there are still no specific legal requirements or standard for the use of these materials. Many bridges built in the early years are gradually losing stability due to the weather and the impact of heavy trucks. They will have to be replaced in the coming years. Carbon concrete could replace the use of steel in construction work. Instead, the traditional iron gates carbon concrete contains carbon fibers. Carbon concrete could replace the use of steel in construction work. Instead of the traditional iron gates, carbon concrete contains carbon fibers. For approximate 16-fold price, you get the 24-fold performance. Therefore, carbon fibers are already today commercial perspective more than steel. But what is the disadvantage? You must see. The base of carbon fibers are on the one hand pen-based fibers, or on the other hand, pitch-based carbon fibers. Recent research shows that in processing pitch-based carbon fibers, very small responsible fibers fragments can arise. It is true that pitch-based carbon fibers currently only market nearly around 5%, but we are very concerned about this release in the air of these responsible critical fibers. You have heard about the fiber principle. It has been known since 19 1977 that fibers of a critical dimension, so-called WHO fibers, are able to cause cancer in the lungs. This fiber principle also applies to carbon fibers and other advanced materials. So we have to be very, very careful when using new materials. We have to be carefully examine these products from the point of view of health protection before they are used in a large scale. We must definitively prevent a second disaster like the one with asbestos. There's no question that risk assessment for hazardous materials in this very difficult and demanding task, especially for the companies in construction. We know that many companies are hardly able to guarantee the health protection of the employees without outside support. Therefore, the BG Bau in Germany set up a hazardous information system a long time ago. The system is designed as a sector-specific solution from specialists for the construction industry and provides information on thousands of hazardous materials. The internet-based system often extensive support free change of many questions in the subject of hazardous materials. Access to information you can get in a very simple way over the internet and entering a search term in the search key, just like people know it from Google. The core of information system short control guidance sheets for the safe handling of hazardous materials. Since employees from many different countries work often in the construction industry, the information has so far been translated into 16 languages. Therefore, the system can also be used well in other countries. There's also a web-based app for the information system available. So every user who has a smartphone in his pocket can use the information directly on construction site, exactly then when the hazardous substances are used. Now I hope I was able to give you a really short brief insight to the subject of hazardous materials in construction. The big problems with the use of these substances are the large amount that they are used on construction sites and the lack of knowledge about the danger inside the companies. Without external support from experts like you, it is extremely difficult for companies in the construction area to recognize the dangers and ensure a safe use. Therefore, good, understandable information is an important part of achieving Vision Zero. Thank you very much for your attention and take this message home with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Norbert, for these interesting, let's say, sector-specific presentations, problems and solutions. And you talked about asbestos, epoxy resins, and a new product, new risks. So the carbon concrete composite can create a lot of new risks, and we have to take care of that. I was very happy that you mentioned this information system about hazardous substances. It is an open source product and it is in so many languages. I think it's very helpful for Africa because if you have a hazardous substances, you will get a lot of information on that system about also protection measures, about the risks of the product. And here you can see it again on your mobile phone, on your smartphone. You can use it immediately and all the time. Thank you very much. I will have a look if there is any direct question. It is not. Nevertheless, I think if questions will come, all right, a second, I will share here. No, if questions will come later, we are able to forward it to Norbert Kluger, and then you will get an answer for sure. Thank you once again very much.
Thank you very much.
The next speaker, thank you. The next speaker is Dr. Israel Iroen Sindhu. is Medical Director, Occupational Health of West African International SOS from Nigeria. I'm really interested to get your experience. You are focusing on one issue, so I don't want to tell too much, but I think your title shows it already, silicosis in the construction sector. This is quite different all over the world. We have countries where it is still a problem, and we have countries where it is no longer a problem, but with a lot of experience in the past. So thank you very much for joining us, Dr. Israel Ironsindhu, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for having me. I'll quickly share my screen. Today, we'll be talking about silicosis in the construction industry. We already know that silicosis is a global problem and is the oldest occupational disease and also the oldest occupational lung disease for a reason that is so obvious because of the causation agent is so universal. It's so global that even the WHO and International Labour Organization rolled out the Global Program for Elimination of Silicosis, partnering with several countries to make sure that this underdiagnosed dilemma that has no treatment per se is eradicated. To emphasize on the seriousness, more than 5 million people are annually exposed to respirable silica. And when we talk about respirable silica, we are talking about small fragments of the silica dust that is small enough to get down beyond what we call the terminal bronchiole to the area of the lung where gaseous exchange takes place. And I said earlier, silicosis is underdiagnosed, which makes it difficult to estimate the number of people who will be suffering from it. And part of the challenge you have in making this diagnosis is the fact that by the time the person will be suffering from it, the person would have long left the exposure or the industry that exposed them to the silica hazard. In as much as in countries like US and Europe, interventions are in place to help reduce it, but we know that the highest prevalence is still found around US, Europe, China, and India. With respect to local experience, there are pockets of studies within Nigeria. You don't have a consolidated country prevalence per se around silicosis. In the UK, according to UK HSC, over 500 construction workers are believed to die from exposure to silica in the UK. And high mortality from silicosis was related to the construction activities, according to a study done by NIOSH between 1990 and 1999. And it is not in any way surprising that the reduction in the permissible exposure limit by OSHA from 100 microgram per meter cube to 50 microgram per meter cube was actually focused. The construction workers were the basis for that reduction because of their high level of exposure. And the beautiful thing about preventing silicosis is because prevention is the only treatment, is the only effective treatment for silicosis. And when you prevent silicosis, because the causative agent is also classified as a carcinogen and known to cause lung cancer and also known to cause chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, when you effectively prevent silicosis, you are alongside preventing other respiratory diseases. I want to give us a bit of insights around the causative organism, which is silica, crystalline silica. Crystalline silica, also called silicon dioxide, is a basic component of soil, sand, clay, granite, and other minerals They also found in products like brick and concrete products, and it is the second most abundant element on the earth crust, second only to oxygen. And this explains why it is one of the oldest and most common occupational lung diseases. Type of silica. The type of silica that causes silicosis is the crystalline type. You have amorphous silica, it doesn't. And there are three types of silica. Quartz is the commonest type of silica, and it's also regarded as the most abundant mineral on Earth. The second type, cristobalite, tridymite. When on a good day, even if you're not working in the construction industry, you're exposed to some allowable level of silica. When you compare the amount of silica one is allowed to breathe in a day without harm to the size of a coin, if you look at my slide, this is what it should be. The occupational exposure limits according to in the EU and according to UKHSC is 0.1 milligram per meter cube, whereas OSHA in 2018 reduced their own to half that exposure limit with focus on the construction industry. And it's also important that when you are working with certain material, you should be able to know the approximate crystalline silica content of such material. For example, sandstone has about the largest component of silica, 70 to 90% of silica. Concrete and mortar, 25 to 70% and all that. Marble and limestone have about the lowest concentration of silica in them. So in terms of your risk stratification, you should be able to know what you're working with and what's the likely component of silica. How does silica cause silicosis? I have a little video that won't take time I want you to watch to help give you insight into the rest of my presentation.
Silica. It's one of the most common substances on Earth. It can be found in materials like sand and rock, and building products like concrete and brick. When a worker cuts, grinds, or drills materials that contain silica, dangerous crystalline silica dust is released into the air. As the worker breathes, silica crystals flow into his mouth and nose and down the air passages deep into the lungs. The tiny crystals enter the small, fragile air sacs where oxygen is absorbed into the blood. Immune system cells, called macrophages, engulf and try to dissolve the crystals, but they are unable to. Over time, more and more crystals build up inside the macrophage cells. The macrophages carry the silica into the walls of the lung, where they die. Scar tissue forms around the dead cells and spreads as more cells die. This damage can continue even after the exposure to silica stops. Eventually, so much scar tissue forms that the lungs can no longer function. For information on how to protect yourself from silica.
Thank you very much for the time on that video. The summary of that video is that when you are exposed to silica, your body tries to fight it. In the bid for your body to fight it, it destroys its own tissue. And the irony about it is that even after the person is withdrawn from that exposure, that fight of the body against the silica continues. So the fact that you are withdrawn from the exposure does not stop the damage done already. It progresses onto a certain terminal point. So prevention remains the absolute way to combat the fight against silicosis. Having understood how silica causes silicosis, I'll give us a graphical definition of what silicosis is. Silicosis is a progressive, as I said, once it starts, it goes on, incurable, but preventable, very key, fibrotic restrictive lung disease. What I mean by fibrotic is that when the damage to the lung is done, it makes it look like fiber. The ability of the lung to expand and accommodate more air is now limited. That's why we call it restrictive. It restricts the ability of the lung. It is caused by inhalation of respirable crystalline silica, and is characterized by inflammation, scarring, and nodular lesions. Oftentimes, when you do X-ray, the lesions of silicosis is seen on the upper lobe. It might be found in other places. Essentially, there are three types of silica.
Il y a trois types de silica, c'est des silicoses. Il y a des chroniques ou classiques, ce qui prend 15 ans à 20 ans pour se manifester après que la personne est exposée. Vous avez aussi les silicoses accélérées qui viennent beaucoup plus tôt. Si quelqu'un commence à avoir cela, a commencé à travailler exposé, ils ont le type accéléré, et souvent à causer par une forte concentration. Ils vont commencer à l'avoir. Ce n'est pas facile de diagnostiquer cela. Comme je l'ai dit, le diagnostic est beaucoup plus manqué parce que les gens n'entrent pas dans l'histoire de l'exposition et parce que les patients auraient quitté cette carrière le moment où cela se produit. Parfois, c'est asymptomatique. Bien sûr, le type grave, manque d'oxygène, parfois des douleurs au niveau de poitrine, la toux, la perte de poids, et puis la fièvre et mal à respirer. Et cela demande que le clinicien puisse considérer l'histoire clinique quand ils font la révision de patients. Bien sûr, les patterns, les modèles X-ray est très important. Et je veux vous donner, parfois, les silicas peuvent se retrouver dans des endroits où vous allez vous attendre le moins. En 2015, on m'a appelé faire une analyse sur le département d'ingénierie et de construction dans une société. Ils étaient beaucoup plus intéressés d'avoir le manganèse, le nickel et le fer. Et dans cet environnement de travail. Et à notre surprise, ce qui était venu, ce qu'on a trouvé dans l'alarmant, ce n'était même pas la raison pour laquelle ils nous avaient appelés, c'était le silica. Ils avaient un niveau très élevé de silica. C'était évident. Ce n'était même pas leur peur, ce que nous avons trouvé. Jacques Hamarin est une autre, les briques, les bétons, le mixage de béton, les briques, et quand vous balayez à sec, c'est là que créent les silicats. Comme je l'avais dit, la prévention. Vous avez 3 minutes, désolé. Vous avez la prévention primordiale où vous allez cibler la prévention, même avant que l'opération ne commence. Vous allez enlever toutes les sources de silica et la substitution. La prévention primaire, il y a des gens qui sont exposés avant qu'ils ne commencent à avoir des symptômes. Vous pouvez les mettre dans les symptômes. Et la détection primaire, précaire. Et la troisième, la prévention tertiaire. La maladie est établie. Et l'objectif, c'est de réduire nous mettre les gens dans un traitement ou dans une réhabilitation. Les programmes de respiration est clé dans le combat contre les silicats. Les procédures standards comme l'hierarchie et l'éducation des employés, le sondage médical, le programme de maintenance, aussi l'évaluation de votre programme. Cela sont très importants. La prévention de l'intervention des silicats se met en place avec l'exposition, les actions correctives, l'utilisation et à éviter le balayage à sec. Ainsi, une surveillance robuste, les sports, l'exercice et la conscientisation au lieu de travail et l'évaluation aussi, cela est très important. À qui est-ce qu'on doit inclure? Les gens qui font ces activités à haut risque, les hauts risques des silicats. Même si vous pensez que vous avez le haut risque, vous devez inclure tous ces gens dans la surveillance. Chaque fois que vous avez les équipements, le besoin des équipements de protection dans des paramètres et tous cela sont indiqués. Les composants de surveillance de respiration, les questionnaires, et puis un suivi, les spiromètres, l'examen de poitrine, l'examen thoracique. Et chaque 3 ans, dans les 15 ans, avoir la surveillance, aussi le style de vie, éviter les cigarettes ou fumer. La formation des employés est très importante. Et l'examen de thorax doit commencer à 15 ans à cause de la latence de silica. Cela est très important. Les critères, les gens qui sont asymptomatiques dans la surveillance, le grade 0. Chaque année, vous devez faire des tests. S'il y a des baisses dans une année, dans les 5 ans, 500 000 litres, vous devez reprendre. Si dans les 5 ans, il y a eu des cumulations, dans les 5 ans, vous devez aussi reprendre. Vous devez aussi reprendre. Et la surveillance. La décision des exercices ou de la gymnastique, c'est très important. Impliquer les physiciens. Et les résultats possibles en prenant les décisions en matière de silicose. Et retourner dans la réduction dans les expositions des contrôles ou l'élimination, ce serait vos décisions en termes d'intervention que vous devez faire pour éliminer la silicose. Rappelez-vous, je n'ai pas insisté sur le traitement parce que ce qui est le traitement le plus important, c'est la prévention. La licence a une vie misérable de retraité, c'est l'exposition. Vous devez toujours mettre les mains ensemble pour faire ce que nous pouvons pour prévenir les silicoses dans les lieux de travail, partout et à tout moment. Merci beaucoup pour votre attention. Merci beaucoup, docteur Israël. Cela a été très structuré, l'explication sur la question des silicoses. Une phrase que vous avez mentionnée, que vous devez garder à l'esprit, silicose est progressive, mais est une maladie des poumons progressive, mais préventive. Vous avez donné certaines idées sur comment le faire, et je pense que la vidéo était tellement impressive, et j'espère que c'est une source ouverte où nous pouvons tous accéder, et enfin que nous puissions comprendre et
a very, very dangerous disease. And if you look to the fatalities related to the use or inhaling of asbestos or silicosis, it's very
C'est
similar.
une
The rates are
maladie très dangereuse. Et si vous regardez la fertilité et l'utilisation de cela, des silicoses,
it disappeared.
C'est très similaire. Et le taux est très
Maybe you will ask directly, maybe much easier. Then I don't have to read it.
That's
Please.
fine. I think Dr. Moyo has already answered. I was just asking if there is comorbidity between silicosis and tuberculosis. I mean, Moyo answered that. And I was also asking a question, asking, can silicosis be misdiagnosed and missed out by a clinician? I mean, and not be able to pick it. And we also have silicosis, people that work in where you have localization of industry, they're exposed to silicosis, which of course is not created by his workplace, but by surrounding industries around our workplace. Are there regulations supporting this or regulating this in Nigerian law? Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. Any comment from your side, Dr. Aaron Sindo?
Okay, thank you very much. And as I said from beginning that, yeah, there are comorbidities. When people suffer from silicosis, the chances of pulmonary infection is high, especially tuberculosis. Silicosis does not cause tuberculosis, but people who have silicosis have a higher chance of suffering from tuberculosis and even other pulmonary diseases, like I mentioned, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease. Chances of misdiagnosing it, I said earlier, the diagnosis is very, very much missed because it's not the first thing you think about. People look at it as a diagnosis of exclusion, and they usually come to it when every other thing has been tried and the patient is not responding. So it is oftentimes misdiagnosed, unless when the X-ray picture is very typical and an experienced respiratory physician makes that diagnosis. So it is very key that you get a respiratory physician involved when someone who has been exposed to this kind of industry develops somehow unexpected respiratory symptoms. Concerning regulation, part of my challenges with regulation is enforcement. There are regulation, control of hazardous substances at work has its own Nigerian equivalent, but the challenge we have around this is enforcement. Who is going to enforce? Who is going to make sure that the workplace measurements are done to make sure that it's within acceptable limits? The enforcement is not there, but definitely the regulations are there.
Thank you very much for these comprehensive answers to the two questions. And I would like to continue with the last speaker, and it is Dr. Sen. He is a chartered engineer of L&T, Larsen & Toubro, a huge construction company in India, and let's say a construction company on a very, very high level on health and safety. And his topic is chemical hazards and control measures in construction, Indian experience. So now we get the experience from a huge construction company, how they handle it and where they see the problems. Please, Dr. Sen, it's a pleasure to welcome you here.
Thank you. Good evening. I'll try to place my share my screen. Is it visible? Is it visible?
Yes, yes, now it's visible.
Okay.
Only make it a little bit bigger, then it's fine.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. So good evening and good evening from India, because it is pretty late here. I think we are near 9 p.m. Thank you for this opportunity. I must thank ISA and all the organizing entities for inviting me. Now, what I'm going to share in this conference is not from an organization per se, but some of the general features of construction related chemicals exposure and the challenges, how we can meet it. Before I take you there, I would like to give you a broad picture how the Indian construction scenario is. We have around 54 million people. Of course, the data is little older, so maybe a little more now by this time. But a large number is in unskilled category, and very huge number of companies are small in nature. So this creates a lot of challenge in terms of the control measures, particularly for chemicals, because there are other challenging issues, including the fall from height, material handling, civil excavations, etc. But and another problem is the skill and the number of engineers in that site. So this is in general. And if I say the accident data, because health data is not really available much, the country is going through a digitalization process in which the epidemiological data perhaps will be available. So I am not able to give any construction related health data, but there are fatalities which is recorded, and this is if not very reliable, but can be considered for. So you can see a large number of people are actually dying in construction sector, which are reported. Yeah. So that is a big spectrum. If we see the chemicals and in various processes, of course, I will not be detailing in each of this because there are the challenge of time. But every construction activity perhaps has some or the other chemical interface, say, including from piling, excavation, depending on where we are doing, it will require bitumen, it will require diesel exhaust, it will emanate diesel exhaust, waterproofing activities, surface hardening, concreting, floor epoxy, repair and dismantling, repair, rehabilitation. Silica, we have just listened. So there are huge chemical, exposure in each of the activities. But unfortunately, this occupational health part in construction is not that heeded in any of the in comparison to the safety challenges. So this is remaining a big area of concern. I will just share two or three small case studies which are very common. And one of the case studies, which is pretty recent, came to my notice is that, mixing of the look-alike bottle of water and keeping the chemical. Here in this case, it was a thinner looking like water. Though there is a label, but the label is in English. And all the people do not read English, and particularly when the person is thirsty, he don't really look at the label. He just look at the bottle. And the bottle, if it is look-alike, then there is a chance of misunderstanding and drinking it. So fortunately, in this case, he could recognize before he drank a lot, but then there was a hospitalization required. There was another case in which it is it is a running plant. I can say it is a brownfield project, and the chemical has seeped into the excavation pit. Though the area is declared safe, but due to the problem of the adjoining areas, so there is chemical in the excavated pit, which can come from a running plant unsuspected. And there is a typical case, which of course related to a construction machinery, when the jump start, that means when the original battery do not start, they do a jump start process, and during that process, perhaps the acid fumes came out because the technician was trying to do something which perhaps should not be done. I mean, auto electrician. So there could be a number of cases using the used container for keeping things which is eatable or drinking water, things like that. So I'm not going, but there are examples of various chemical exposures. Now, if I come to the practical part of this, you have primarily the physical hazards because of the compressed gases, flammable liquids, oxidizers, etc. As well as from the mental point of view, some of these are carcinogenic, highly toxic, corrosive, and irritants. This is the challenge. Now, as we all go through this, the control measures, and primary consideration is elimination and substitution, has also been mentioned in a couple of fewer earlier speakers. So, since the elimination and substitution is the best option, some of the cases it is possible, and some of the cases we have to focus on the other options like engineering control, administrative control, and the personal protective equipment. So in chemical, possibly the first two layer of control measures are the most important. If I come to the some of the very commonly used chemicals and the control measures, we have the cement and lime, silicas, and there are huge exposure because of the knowledge the way people are using the same. That means the application method and awareness of it. So there are admixtures which are basically irritant, and the pH value is high. The polyurethane skin and eye irritants, and also bitumen, which is hugely used in the road projects, etc. So though the elimination and substitutions have limited application in some of the cases, the other options like the engineering control, having proper container, having separate storage, which we are trying to do in, and also the administrative control like permit, training, a high level of supervision, and of course, last but not the least, is coveralls, providing the suitable equipments and instruments. Construction also have a large amount of hot work for various processes, particularly for welding, cutting, etc., where the fumes are generated because of the coating and the chemicals which are, and also the metals which are getting exposed to the heat. So metal fume fibers because of exposure to the welding fume, lead poisoning, and lung diseases, including the dermatitis. And of course, there are other gases like carbon monoxide, fluorides, and NOx and O3. So each one of these pollutants have its own effect on the worker who are exposed to this. And the major thing which we can perhaps do is to provide the dilution ventilation. Some of the places have a rotation of the people, and also give the protection. Here, this is very simple, but took a lot of effort, because it is easy when we have been doing welding in a factory or in a workshop. Workshops are also sometimes connected to the construction, but when it is done on site, because of the nature of the activity, it is very difficult to provide local exhaust ventilation, but it is not impossible. So here is of course a locally developed solution. When a welder is doing an welding, he has an adjustable mechanism to take the fume out with a small fan inside, and creating a better ventilation to the person. So it is an on-site picture explaining development to ensure that there is a better ventilation. Of course, this is a little bit open area, but this is more useful when people are working inside a tunnel or inside a confined space, underground, cellar level, etc. So this picture has been taken here for the clarity, but it could be very useful in confined spaces. I mean, not so well ventilated spaces. So there are, of course, painting is a major activity, and some of the paintings are, of course, on the open area, but there are paintings which happen in the epoxy painting inside the tanks, and big pipelines. So there are people are exposed because of painting, and also there are continuous painting of various structures which are done inside a painting machine. But still, the people who are doing handling these paints, and they have huge amount of exposure, and there are serious health hazards which you can see listed here, like toxicity to the nervous systems and things like. Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Sen, your presentation disappeared.
Oh, is it now visible? No.
No.
Okay, just give me a moment.
Only one remark. Around 6 minutes left.
Is it visible now?
Yeah. Around 6 minutes left.
Yeah. Is it visible?
Yes.
Okay,
it's
so
visible.
Thank you. So, I was just mentioning about the personal protective equipment and importance of the same in the light of the limited protection or limited possibility of having alternative control measures. Of course, coming to the fiber, we have heard the discussions on asbestosis and the usage of asbestos. Asbestos is not yet banned here. There are companies who are bringing alternate material like cement fibers with alternate material, but it is still a sort of struggle here to stop the usage of asbestos. And of course, as an organization, we are not using any asbestos in our organization, but as a country, we have not yet stopped the usage of asbestos, because some of the people thinks that they are using it in a different way, and the alternative material is little bit costly, as say around 20% to 30%. So our effort would be now to stop the usage as much as possible in the country. Although as a company we have been able to convince the management and stop the usage of the deadly fiber. Now coming to the DGs and nitrogen, because nitrogen is hugely used for particularly in oil and gas sector for purging and doing maintenance work, the repair work, connection, uptake, etc. So many times it happens that after the nitrogen purging is done, the proper oxygen, before allowing the people do not check the total adequacy of the air, oxygen quality in the air. And there have been cases of people suffocating because of the large amount of nitrogen, or maybe 100% nitrogen. And since it has no smell and nothing, so people could die because of falling in a pit, or falling in, or going in a drum where nitrogen is filled without realizing that is lethal. And of course, DG sets, particularly in tunnels and hydroelectric projects as well as road tunnels. It is important to have proper ventilation through engineering control and, of course, administrative control. Exhaust being taken out. Going to carpentry on the carpentry workshop where the formwork material are being prepared for civil activities. There are, of course, alternative materials coming, but wood is very highly being still used in construction, though the aluminum formwork and other formworks are becoming popular, and they are pretty lightweight and they are very sturdy, but there is a difference in the cost. And this wood dust have its own hazard in terms of the exposure and also the long time exposure, because some people who are working in the making activity means they are using the for various processing in the carpentry shop. So they are continuously exposed. Of course, there are solvents and paints, as I mentioned earlier. And transport machineries, which I just discussed, the various hazardous chemicals being emanated during the exhaust, and they have their own harmful effect. And it is very important to have think of some substitution, have not having the machinery operated by diesel, but by operated by electric or by pneumatic machines. So that is how substitution could be helpful. It is being also done in some places, not fully implemented.
Last 2 minutes, Dr. Sen.
So radiography is also being used for structural steel work and things like that. So it is important to have proper engineering control. And so I'll go a little faster because of the interest of the time. Silica have been discussed. So the most important thing is elimination, lead, H2SO4, and of course pest control. The focus has to remain in prevention and the leadership commitment which comes from the countries. So there is a recent change in the legislation on the safety laws. So several safety legislation have been updated, and as early as last month it has just come. So focus would be on the country's leadership as well as the leadership of the organizations, and identification of the hazards, and of course training and involvement of people in the construction sector is very important, because a large number of people come, as you have seen, around 82% people are not very much knowledgeable in terms of the risks and hazards and the skill they have. So we have to continue to focus on prevention and apply the Vision Zero principles as we move forward. With this, I thank you all and for your attention, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sen. And I think you gave a wonderful overview of your experience from L&T in India, and a lot of practical examples related to different exposures of hazardous substances. Also, the case studies were very well understandable. So I think you pointed all these topics out in the construction sector, which all the others, let's say, focusing on as well. And so many thanks, and hope to see you once again in India after the pandemic stop. So we are a little bit out of time, and so I want now to first of all say thank you to all the speakers, but I'm not finalizing this conference. But it was a great pleasure for me to listen. It was a great pleasure to have this first international Vision Zero Health and Safety Conference in construction online. And I saw a lot of remarks during the whole hour, positive remarks and thank yous. And therefore, from my side of you, thank you. And I would like to give the floor to Eden or Trumpets, Honorable Hakim Dixon. Up to you to decide. Thank you so much, and thank you for all the efforts you did.
Let me thank everyone for people that registered and were able to participate in this conference. First of all, I'm going to say a very big thank you to Professor Carr and the team all the way in Germany. They did a very good job, and we're so proud of you that, believe me, you will not have any reason to regret that this conference did not take place this year, but definitely you'll be much more happier next year by the time we have it in physical contact with ourselves. And people that actually did a lot of presentation today, believe I've never seen this amount of energy and presentation before. This is very, very substance. And believe me, we will use it. We'll be able to make sure that what we've been taught here today, we'll put into practice. And I mean, well, I call you doctor, professor. Being a professor, you become a doctor. So thank you so much for it. Thank you. Hey, do you have anything to say? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here. Honestly, I am just overwhelmed. I'm short of words. I don't know what to say. We planned this conference, but I think what we saw was more than what we bargained for. Like Hakim just said, paper presentation were just on point. I am very happy with the depth of content that was available at this conference. Yeah, it is virtual, but I love the energy. I like the feedback that I'm getting. And I just hope not just to come and listen. People have been here. I can see people have been here from 9 o'clock. They're still patient to wait till this time. This doesn't happen every day. But I just trusting God that all that we have learned today, not just to remain in our memory or to remain in the jotter where we took all the notes. Let's go back to our workplaces and translate this to practice. At the end of the day, if what we have learned today does not on the long run make our workplaces better, then we haven't learned. We just came for a session and we all spend our time, but we never used to improve our workplace. What this has shown us is like a pointer, a precursor into what the physical conference is going to look like for next year. I am amazed, and while we're here, I was getting a lot of emails, people telling me, you didn't invite us, but I said, just calm down. Your physical one for next year is going to be much more than this. And I thank everyone. I'm seeing Dr. Nkumbula, I'm seeing Petra. I'm not sure Petra had lunch even because her face is showing that. Everyone, everyone that has been here since morning, we can't just thank you. You know, this was a very successful virtual conference, and we just say thank you again. Thank you so much. You all made it happen, and we appreciate this. Professor Carr, I mean, we told you and you saw it. Thank you so much for believing in us in that little meeting we had in Johannesburg and trusting us that this could happen. And here we are today. From just a little discussion, here we are. I mean, putting this conference forward. We just thank you. Richard, honestly, thank you for everything. Everyone for every presentation, we just thank you. Chancellor, I can see you, everyone, we just say thank you. You know, words will fail us to say all I want to say today, but we are so happy. Thank you very much. And I know the day is fast spent as we all go back home for dinner, obviously. For dinner, I mean, have a very sumptuous dinner. And remember that we had a good time today. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
Is Dr. Elizabeth still there? Dr. Elizabeth, we wanted to play the music from Zambia, but it was not going, please.
Oh, yes, please.
Yes, oh.
Where is Michael? Put it on.
Put it on, yeah. I forgot to remind
I told Michael to put it on. Michael, can you put it on now?
But don't dance, just remain on your seat and just shake your body. That makes it.
I'm telling you.
My competition.
The entire video that we wanted to show couldn't come up. We don't know. Maybe I don't know, from the network where they gave us too low. We don't know.
Okay.
So can you say something, Doctor?
You can't.
No, say something anyway before the video comes up.
Oh, I'd like to.
You are muted. You're muted.
the Vision Zero song has been nominated for next year's awards in the short film. So I was very happy that that song was nominated. I was part of the jury, but I did declare, interest. I was part of the composers of the song. But I'm very glad that it's one of the nominated ones.
I couldn't hear again, but Professor, do you have anything to say, sir?
I'm saying that 2022 should be the venue of the next conference.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, that reminds us we are all converging in Kenya for the next Osh Africa conference. I think Sanjay mentioned that earlier on. Everybody's already in high spirit to see how we can make that happen. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you to everyone. We will share the video to your link. Everybody will get the video's link later because we couldn't play it. So
I wish I could sing.
Can you find it and play?
I wish I could sing.
Oh, you can try. Just sing it. Anyhow, just sing it. We want to hear the beautiful voice of yours, please.
Chancellor, put up this recording. We'll play this in Zambia Broadcasting Service, okay?
Absolutely.
Maybe we can send the link to all the participants later on. They get a certificate plus the link, and then
I think so. It's all participants will have it, so we can let everybody go. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everyone, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Bye.
Thank you. We'll see you guys next year.
Bye.
Yes.
I hope we'll meet in Kenya next year.
Oh yes, we'll be there. We'll be there. Anywhere any African country is doing anything, if we are aware and we get the link, we will be there live. We need to
I
support
will
each
start
other.
making now program to have you hosted in Mozambique.
Hey, we will be there. As I said, I'm available. I'm not doing anything. I'm now a retired man from government, so I'm free.
Thank you.
Oh, I can hear the song. I hear the song. Who's playing it? Oh, where you go? Oh, don't stop it now, doctor. People. Don't send me pasiro.
DG, if you sing again, I will off everything here.
I'm quiet because I don't have a good voice. It's okay. It's all right.
Our Vision Zero is based on the belief that all accidents, diseases, and harm at work are preventable. Remember that lack of proper safety and health measures has claimed a number of lives. Therefore,
Thank you so much. everyone. Thank you so much.
You know what happened? Petra did not say a word now. She needs to say something. She has to unmute herself. Okay, let's hear you.
Unmute yourself, Petra.
Sorry. If you want me to say something, I can only say thank you very much for taking the initiative of replacing the originally planned conference with this one. I think it was a great experience for everyone. And if I may, I would also like to thank Michael for all the support he gave us during the organization of the conference. And I'm looking forward to working with you for next year's conference. And I hope to finally see you all in person.
Thank you so much. We'll see you too.
Thank you so much. So I think on this note, we need to release everyone right now. We are all tired, and we need to go home and have dinner and go to bed. Thank you so much, and journey messages to everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.